The record show, we call this regular board meeting to order on July the 10th at exactly 3 p.m. We'll start our agenda with pledge and invocation led by our District 4 Commissioner Brian Deloge.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to invite Pastor Rodney West from Pisgah United Methodist Church up to the podium, and he will lead us in the invocation.
Let us pray. Father, your word records the words of King David, who said, "Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor stands in the way of sinners, or sits in the seat of the scornful. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in this law does he meditate day and night." I thank you, Father, for the men and women who serve this community and this county by sitting on this commission. I pray, Father, that you would guide them and lead them, give them your direction, give them your strength, your courage, your wisdom, your faith, and your hope. And we pray, Father, for our county and for this community in which we live. You know, Father, that this room is filled each and every meeting with various needs. But, Father, we also recognize that our most desperate need are those needs that only you can meet: love, compassion, gentleness, kindness, mercy. And so, Lord, we look to you. Bless this meeting. Bless these men and women who are in this room. And we give you thanks for it now in the name of your Son. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Deloge. We'll now have proclamations and presentations. We'll start with a proclamation presented to our baseball coach, Coach Mike Martin, presented by Commissioner John Daly. Commissioner Daly, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I certainly do appreciate it. Good afternoon. This is a very special and wonderful occasion. At this time, I'd like to ask Coach Mike Martin of the Florida State University Seminole baseball team, Mrs. Martin and Mary Beth, please come join me as well here at the podium. As we know, this year, during this season, Coach Martin hit the incredible mark of being the winningest college baseball coach in NCAA history, and we are very proud to have him here. On a personal note, I have grown up with the Martin family. Mike Jr. and I are the same age. We've known each other since elementary school and middle school and high school. And the Martin family are one of those great families here in Tallahassee. They truly are role models. Miss Martin and my mom are very good friends. Mary Beth, you and my brother are good friends growing up, and it's just been a pleasure being part of the Martin family. And what's amazing is there are so many people in this community that probably have the same story. And for that, on behalf of the community, thank you very much. So, Coach, if you'll come join me real quick, I have this proclamation in your honor. And it reads, whereas Mike Martin began his career with the Florida State baseball as a player in 1965, and whereas Mike Martin joined the Florida State baseball coaching staff in 1975 and became the head coach in 1980, and whereas Coach Martin has led the Seminoles to 18 conference championships, to the NCAA tournament in every season as head coach, and to 16 College World Series, and whereas Coach Martin has been named Conference Coach of the Year 13 times, and whereas Coach Martin was inducted into the American Baseball Association Hall of Fame in 2007, and whereas Coach Martin became the winningest coach in NCAA baseball history on May 5th, 2018, with his 1,976 win, and finished the season with 1,987 wins. And Coach, we're going to still go next year too. Absolutely, absolutely. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Leon County, Florida, that we recognize Michael D. Martin for his contributions to Florida State University athletics and the Leon County community, dated this 10th day of July, 2018. signed by the chairman, Nick Maddox, all of the county commissioners of Leon County, attested to by Vince Long, the county administrator. Congratulations, Coach Martin. We're very proud of you.
Absolutely.
I'm going to say a few words. First of all, thank you very much, Commissioner, for this recognition, and thank you, Commissioners, for the outstanding job you do in our great community of Tallahassee. I recognize some of the people in here. When I walked in, I got a chance to say hello to a number of people, and I had never met you face to face, but I recognized your voice. You always knew when it was time to take the pitcher out, and that was when he gave up a home run. It's a real sincere honor, and I very much appreciate this. We've been here 54 years. This is our community. And thanks to all of you for making it better.
Thank you. We're going to get quickly. Ladies and gentlemen, Ron, I know you want to come down. If any of the other commissioners would like to come down for the picture, that'd be fantastic. Now, while they're coming down, Coach, yeah, come on down. Come on down. Or do you want? Is that easier? Justin, okay. Justin, would you like for us to all go up or have one? Okay. Coach. Now, while we're getting situated, Coach, is it true that Nick Maddox got cut from the baseball team because he wasn't fast enough? Come on in the middle, Coach.
Yeah, I couldn't hit a 79 miles. No, I couldn't hit a baseball at all. Yeah.
Well, you had to get a bigger bat and make sure the bat was like that big.
Mike Jr. will tell you I couldn't hit the bat.
Could you hit the ball?
This one? That's right.
Is that Mike in there?
This is what happens when we do things on the fly.
Nick, you could have been a catcher. You don't have to do nothing but just catch it.
I wasn't that flexible.
You have to squat down every time. Now, I want a picture of this.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, Coach Mark.
Make sure that y'all get some copies.
One, two, three. Ooh. Congratulations, Coach. Thank you, Commissioner Daly, for doing that. That was a cool picture for me to be able to take. I've now asked for the representatives from Crawfordville Trace Homeowners Association, Greater Bond Neighborhood Homeowners Association, and Arbor Trace Homeowners Association to come up, please. I'm going to keep you up. I got to read. Commissioners, these neighborhoods represent your neighborhood of the year, and today not able to join us was Samadi Jones, who was our neighbor of the year. The proclamation reads, Leon County has a long history of supporting strong and resilient neighborhoods that help shape our community. And whereas neighborhoods and neighbors who demonstrate exceptional community service are the foundation of what makes Leon County a special place to live, work, and raise a family. And whereas Leon County works closely with the Council of Neighborhood Associations to raise neighborhood leader awareness of county services and programs. And whereas Leon County is committed to honoring neighborhoods and individuals who help to create a vibrant communities reinforced through the annual Neighbor of the Year program. And whereas each year Leon County presents 3 neighborhoods with a small, large, and unincorporated Neighborhood of the Year award and 1 individual with a Neighbor of the Year award. And whereas Crawfordville Trace Homeowners Association was awarded the 2018 Leon County Small Neighborhood of the Year award for weather-related upgrades to its neighborhood and dedication to creating a safe and inviting environment. And whereas Greater Bond Neighborhood Association was awarded the 2018 Large Neighborhood of the Year award for its dedication to community outreach in their neighborhood and the surrounding areas. And whereas Arbor Trace Homeowners Association was awarded the 2018 Unincorporated Neighborhood of the Year award for its partnership with Leon County to create a trail access to the Mississippi Greenway. And whereas Samadi Jones was awarded the 2018 Neighbor of the Year award for her exemplary service and dedication to her fellow neighbors. And whereas the efforts of these neighborhoods and the neighbor set an example in our community by proving that collective efforts can make a difference. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Leon County Commissioners in Leon County, Florida, that Leon County honors the recipients of the 2018 Neighborhood and Neighbor of the Year awards. This is signed by myself as well as the rest of the commission and attested to by the county administrator. Congratulations.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of our County Commissioner's Office. We at Crawfordville Trace Community is extremely honored to receive such an award for our neighborhood. First of all, I'd like to thank all who were involved in granting us such a prestigious award. While we may not know your name individually, but we know your face. And we don't know others, but we bring it all together only because we are in an area, because we are city and county at the same time. And it is evident that you had your eyes on us. For that, we are thankful. I am very much aware that I could not achieve this on my own. I, Georgia M. Coley, the president of Crawfordville Trace Homeowners Association, Ms. Brenda Jackson, the vice president, Mr. Byron Thomas, our secretary, Ms. Fashandia Coleman is our most capable treasurer. And today with me is Mr. Michael Rutherford, which is our sergeant at arms and our at-large board member. And his wife, Ms. Patricia Rutherford, is here, our crime watch coordinator. I also would like to thank Ms. Christique Henry, Mr. Jonathan Peterson, Ms. Leanne Watts-Williams, and all who in our neighborhood, Ms. Leanne Watts-Williams is our neighborhood coordinator with the city of Tallahassee, and all other mentors who God has placed in our path to bring us where we are today. While we did register for the award, we had no inkling that we would win such an award. Receiving this award in 2018 gives us incentive to work even harder to make our neighborhood even better, to press through the delays and challenges, and to continue working with our mentors. You see, our goal is to be the recipient of 2019. All right, now. With a glad and a humble heart to all those involved in making today possible, a heartfelt thank you and God bless you.
Thank you so much to the Board of Commissioners for this award. You all hear from me a lot, so I'm not going to say much. It is my pleasure to serve as the president of the Greater Bond Neighborhood Association and Tallahassee as a whole. I serve with great people in my community, and just as Ms. Coley said, we've had great mentors to help lead us and guide us as we learn how to lead our community. I've heard in the past that Bond was on its knees, right? And a couple of days ago, we were in a meeting and we were talking, and I said, yeah, we may be on our knees, but not in surrender. We're on our knees building on new days. A great planner said that. And so I want everybody, just keep your eyes out for what's happening in Bond. We are moving up, and we want to do great things to come. So again, thank you for this honor. Greatly appreciate it.
I thank you for having have us here. I have to say that I haven't anything prepared. The homeowner that applied for this, actually Herschel Holloway, could not be here. Great thanks for him to put this out there. The ironic thing is, I wanted to apply this year and didn't think I was going to get it in time, and he was already taking care of it. And that's how the community works. People come together, individuals working as a team. And we have a great, diverse neighborhood. It's incredible to me. I moved here about 5 years ago, and it was nothing but the guidance of God that brought me to this neighborhood. Wasn't our first choice of where to live, but I'm so grateful that we're there. The things that we do as a community is just really inspiring. We have a yearly party, neighborhood party. We have biannual garage sales that we come together for, the whole neighborhood. And just minor projects. I just put up a bat house to try to help out the neighborhood with the mosquitoes. Everybody contributes their time. The board members are very attentive to the laws and the statutes that govern the bylaws and all. Our president is here. He's fantastic. He stays on top of everything. And it goes beyond the community within our homes. It goes outside to you guys and other government workers and people that help us along the way. It's noted on here about the trail. That wasn't just our community doing that. It was a partnership between us and Feather Oaks and the commission and a myriad of people that came together for that. So just as the pastor was saying and the previous recipient was saying, God works, does these great works, but He needs us to carry it out for Him. So I'd just like to thank you for, on behalf of Arbor Branch neighborhood, for this award. Thank you very much.
Commissioners, there is a representative here for Samadi Jones is going to receive her proclamation as well. Myself and Commissioner Lindley are proud to say that all of these folks are in our district. To the other district commissioners, congratulations. But I would say we were the grand winners of today. We'll take a picture of the other district commissioners. Even if all the commission want to come down to join that picture, you're more than welcome. Thank you. Yes, bring them up.
Take them up.
Yeah.
It's easier.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair? Mr. Chair, comment?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Congratulations to everyone. There's always a lot of District 5 neighborhoods in the mix, but I think it's pretty fair to say that the entire county, Commissioner Lindley, Commissioner Maddox, your entire district has a lot of fabulous neighborhood associations. And I didn't want to pull this item, but I just wanted to take a moment to say that on consent today, item number 9, this ties in perfectly. I think helping particularly neighborhoods in the unincorporated area is something we have long tried to do in partnership with Kona. It's been fantastic, and I'm really excited about this new initiative. It's on consent, and no one pulled it, so I'm glad we're all good with it, to have more online resources on the county page and linking with Kona to help neighborhoods stand up or address issues with their associations. So this is going to make an even more robust competition in the future, I think. But really appreciate that, Mr. County Administrator, and congratulations again to everyone.
Thank you, Commissioner Dozier. For those neighborhoods that are here and those neighborhoods that are watching, Commissioner Proctor made a suggestion a couple of years ago. I've been in conversations with the county administrator about it. We will be adding best meal to the category for each district. Commissioner Proctor has volunteered to do the taste test for each meal. You got it? All right. I want to recognize Christine Henry, who's giant when it comes to our Kona organization and our crowd today. We appreciate the work that you do and the help that you provide in putting this on each and every year. So thank you very much. We got a full day today. We'll have a lot of speakers later on this afternoon, so we'll try to move as expeditiously through the agenda as we possibly can while hearing every single person out, because that's what we do here. We'll start with the consent agenda. Mr. Administrator, any consent items pulled?
We have 2 consent items pulled, items 20 and 21.
The remaining of consent has been moved by Commissioner Deloge, has been seconded by Commissioner Lindley. All those in favor of the motion on the floor indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. We'll move now to item number 21, correct?
Item number 20.
Item number 20.
Item 20, Commissioners, was pulled by Commissioner Daly. It is a status update on the county's clean energy commitment and the City of Tallahassee's steps to develop a clean energy plan. Staff is available to answer any questions you might have. I should note that we also have a few speaker cards on this item.
Commissioner Daly?
I simply pulled it because I was approached by a couple of citizens that want to speak on the issue. So let's just move straight into the citizens to be heard.
Thank you.
First speaker is John Hendrick.
Mr. Hendrick, last name and address for the record, please. Sir, you have 3 minutes once you come up.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Good to see you all here. I live at 1551 Cristobal Drive, number 1, in Tallahassee, 32303. I'm here speaking on behalf of the Leon County Democratic Party today because this is not just concerning us just as a party, this concerns us as an entire community. We've been concerned over the development of the plans on the energy front for some time now, and we continue to be very concerned over a variety of items for this. Number one, there seems to be a real reluctance to commit to a time frame for a time horizon for which we're trying to shoot for. I mean, I know the Commission has said previously we'll have a 100% clean energy future. That's good, but you guys be saying you want it at some time. When is that? At least the city has put out a horizon of 2035. I'm not seeing where the counties put any sort of horizon on theirs at all, and that's a real concern because what are we planning towards? If we don't have a horizon on it, we could be planning for 100 years from now or whatever the situation is. And that's not real good. We've given you the name, we and other people have given you all the names of lots of other people who want to work in this process. I don't see so far the interest or willingness in working with a lot of these people to try and work towards making a good plan. I mean, that speaks a lot that we're not seeing that we're getting a lot of good citizen input in this, community input. Not a lot of transparency in this. We're very concerned about that. Kind of likewise, going along with saying time horizons, we need to set some time horizons for when you want this plans done. For example, were you to have set a time horizon for 2035, as for the moment the city has, one would think you'd want to have a planning process in place by the end of this year, 2018. Likewise, within a year after that, trustfully, you'd have a plan down on paper that you actually want to see being done for this. And kind of lastly in this whole thing, we're still seeing this real reluctance, barrier, whatever you want to call it, towards working with the city on this. And we're all really one community in this. And hopefully we'd all be able to pull together in some way, shape, or form on this. And so we bring all these items to you because we think these and any others you think are important are worthy of consideration. It's not enough just to fold it into a sustainability plan. Energy is really a standalone. And we're concerned we don't want it to just be enveloped in a sustainability and we just kind of forget about it. So thank you for your time in this, and I hope we can make some progress in these areas.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker.
Jen Zipperer, to be followed by V. Miller.
Name and address for the record, please, ma'am.
Hello, I'm Jen Zipperer. I live at 1604 Sharkey Street. I am the statewide communications director for Rethink Energy Florida, and I have lived in Tallahassee for the past 20 years. Throughout the course of my time spent here in the capital city, I have learned, loved, and grown. I have learned what it means to be an active citizen, loved the people I have come across, and grown into the person I am today. I am here today to ask you to learn, love, and grow by taking the next steps to affirm your commitment to 100% renewable energy. I would also like to thank you for removing item 20 from the consent agenda. I acknowledge the barriers mentioned in the county's December analysis for the Ready for 100 campaign, such as the county's limited purchasing power. But the transition we're asking for is not just about power generation. It's about equitably and inclusively reducing carbon emissions from transit, making buildings energy efficient, and growing smart, among other things. The city is designing a study to produce this transition, but without the leadership from the county, the Ready for 100 campaign can only be half complete. The city and county collaborate on dimensions of urban policy, whether that be on housing, land use, economic development, or capital improvements. That needs to be incorporated if a community-wide transition is going to succeed. For that reason, we asked today for a full briefing and all documentation on the CASC from the Office of Sustainability as soon as possible. This should include timelines, a process for choosing goals, the process for developing ISAPs, etc. We'd also like to know the length and breadth of the county's own ISAP. We ask for this not to hold it up or alter the terms of the compact, but as an informational starting point from which the county can lead alongside the city and residents as a comprehensive community transition effort. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Next speaker.
V. Miller, to be followed by Richard Hopkins.
Name and address for the record, please.
Hi, folks. V. Miller, 3034 O'Brien Drive. I just want to come up here and say I am here with Jen, who is speaking for the first time in front of this body. She said, I filed a card just in case there was anything else that needed to be said. Jen, you nailed it. Everything that she said, I echo. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Richard Hopkins, to be followed by Jim Davis.
Name and address for the record, please.
I'm Richard Hopkins, 1209 Camellia Drive in Tallahassee. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to you all, Commissioners. The first time I spoke to you all a year or so ago, I touted the fact that we had a carbon dioxide scorecard posted on the Sustainable Tallahassee website that had data through 2015 on how we produce CO2, and it had a 15-year time course for those data. Just today we posted the third edition of that scorecard, which has data through the end of calendar year 2017, so 2 more years. And I do commend it to you and to your staff. The percentage of CO2 that we produce that is due to vehicles has risen slightly from 43% to 45%. Basically, the CO2 emissions from vehicles continue their inexorable rise as population rises. We're not changing our behavior or our vehicles with any speed. Our per capita CO2 consumption is drifting downwards marginally. If we were to reach zero net CO2 production by 2035, which is what 100% renewable means to me, we would have to reduce our CO2 production by 6% per year, every year, for the next 17 years. I say this because if we're going to do that, we need to get started. We need to have a viable plan, as as was indicated by the earlier speakers. We need to have that plan in place soon, and we need to start taking steps soon, because as we make capital investments in equipment, in buildings, we are building in energy consumption patterns for the future. We need to start now to be making the changes that we want to see completed in the year 2035. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker.
Final speaker representing Sustainable Tallahassee, Jim Davis.
Name and address for the record, please.
Jim Davis, 1733 Oak Plank Road in Newport. I am the Executive Director of Sustainable Tallahassee. Glad to be here. I'm just here to support the county's plans that they are working on. Sustainable Tallahassee encourages the talk that's going on with the clean energy and the look at the 100% by 2035, but we just have some concerns on how realistic that is. And we think that we need not only from an economic or environmental standpoint, but economic standpoint and from a standpoint of social aspects too. We think there needs to be more involved, more holistic approach to look at, just to concentrate all on just one thing on energy alone. I think you basically ignore the whole sustainability aspects, and that's why we're very encouraged to be working on this compact. I think it's the right direction for the county at this time. You know, there's issues in the county. You know, we need to look at food waste. We need to look at waste in general. We have a 75%, rate that we have to get in recycling by the year 2020. So if you just look at one issue, you forget these other issues. So again, we're here to support the efforts of the county to date. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more speakers? We have no more speakers. Commissioner Daly, you will speak. If not, I have Commissioner Proctor and Commissioner Dozier in queue. You good? Commissioner Proctor?
Thank you, Chairman. One of the speakers indicated that we have not indexed a year in which is in sync with the city at 2035. Commissioners, if we have failed to do that, I think it's very important that we mirror our efforts. We were asked to show faithfulness to this concept of clean air, reusable energy, blah, blah. And I think that if we have not set a date, Commissioners, I'm inclined to be in lockstep with the city if it's not a premature date that we can't reach. Secondly, I think that this is important as well. As I have looked at television, there's sort of a fatalistic ambiance over the air, in that among the concerns which America may well find ourselves in a political, scientific, cultural war with the advent of the name Kavanaugh on yesterday, is that environmentally speaking, there's just a good chance that our environmental policies for our nation may all go to hell. We're not in a strong place today, resulting from a nomination for Supreme Court, and ours being the state of Florida, our environmental protection agency, like the federal agency, if we don't look out for our own, if we don't set our own standards, it's just apparent that the writing on the wall is suggestive that our environment isn't going to be in peril. And I think that to the extent that we locally can think for ourselves, we should. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I would offer a motion, unless staff can tell us otherwise. I make a motion that we would put some definitive dates to 2035 if those things are not in place.
Motion been made by Commissioner Proctor to include a date of 2035 as our goal for 100% renewable energy. Is there a second to it? Seconded by Commissioner Daly. Commissioner Dozier, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I find myself in the remarkable position of possibly voting against this motion. And not because I don't agree with the goals, but I very much appreciate all the comments that were made today. This is the fourth time we've brought this issue up since October. And I wanted to ask a couple of questions before, so this may be the right posture. I appreciate the motion, Commissioner Proctor, but just to draw a couple things out of the agenda item in the comments, Ms. County Administrator, the last time we discussed this, we asked that you go and talk with the city manager about the status of their study and everything else. It's my understanding they have not formally committed to 2035 either. They took it up at one point and they directed staff to assess this, and in the agenda item, it says they're going into a study and there may be ways to partner in the future. Is that correct?
That's my understanding.
Okay. So no one in our community has yet agreed to 2035. We're the first county in the nation to join the Sierra Club and the Mayor's Compact, and we led that effort and we worked with that, and that is fantastic. That commits to renewable energy. I really appreciate, Jen, your comments. You focus on building and transit and everything else. We have to do more. You're absolutely right. I would love for us to work with our city partners and CRTPA more on the bus system, for example. But I think the agenda item says it correctly. We don't own a utility. We are not the biggest player in this. The compact itself, from food waste to other things, there's carbon footprint in everything we do. So it is my perspective that we have done more, and in fact, something that, and I've said this before, Sustainable Tallahassee has been wanting to do since 2009, before I joined the board, initiating the first community compact on sustainability. This was discussed at the Florida Association of Counties Conference just a couple of weeks ago, and I think we're getting a lot of traction with that, and that is great. Other participation, other planning will certainly come. We're early in that, and I think there's been fair comments made at the last meeting and this meeting that we need to expand that process and really make sure everyone's included in the long term. But if we jump ahead and say 2035 is the date, we have nothing to back that up except for a compact that's circulating nationally. We don't know if it's possible. We don't know the cost, particularly to low-income folks. We don't know about infrastructure. We don't know any of those things. It's a promise that I don't know if we can keep yet. So I want us to have a plan. I want us to set a date, but I don't want to make promises we can't keep. So I think we're taking the deliberate steps right now, and we need to take all these comments in, and I hope we get there by the end of the year. John mentioned joining the city in the study. Mr. County Administrator, we haven't been invited to join them in the study. Is that correct?
Not to my understanding.
Yeah. I think we would love to do that if they would like, to invite us to do that, but my understanding is it's more about the utilities and other things like that. So again, I think we're pushing the envelope as far as we can and in a holistic approach, but I don't want to make a promise that I don't understand whether or not we're even capable of meeting it yet, and I'm concerned about that. Now, an indication that we are looking towards 2035 and we want more information, say this calendar year, that I could be comfortable with. Let's put let's keep pushing the envelope if we can, but setting that date, I think we need more information. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Dozier. One clarification on something that you asked County Administrator. Mr. Administrator, you did say that the city has not agreed formally at a goal of 2035. Is that correct?
I believe there was some action that the City Commission took relative to the date, but I was really referring to what Commissioner Dozier was referring to on the study, and that they were doing more work on that to determine what it would take to actually get to that point. You may recall, Commissioners, that we brought to you just back in December a very thorough analysis on what it would take to get to 2035. This board voted to specifically not, based on that analysis, adopt that as the year. We'd be happy to bring that back, more analysis if you'd like, an update to the board on all of the implications of that. But at that time, you decided to do that. Again, my understanding is the city is doing the study, looking into more on what it would actually take to achieve that goal, and I just can't speak off to the top of my head relative to the specific commitment they made on 2035.
Thanks, sir. Commissioner Deloge. I'm sorry. Commissioner Dozier?
Just
yes.
Clarification. The quote from the city motion that's in our agenda item says that they heard a request for 2035 and they directed staff to bring back recommendations on a plan. So they didn't agree to 2035, right, but that was the direction to bring back a plan. So we've made a lot of strides this year. I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I have Commissioner Deloge, Commissioner Proctor. Commissioner Deloge.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I tend to lean towards Commissioner Dozier here, and you take this in small incremental bites. I don't think we need to be out on the bleeding edge. I think, frankly, we're doing what's appropriate, and it just keep the conversation going and see where it goes from here. But I appreciate you.
Commissioner Proctor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My comments were generated from thoughts and ideas that were flexed on television today, and I absolutely heard comments that ours may be a court which may well be indifferent to environmental protection, and I don't know if that's true. I'm not, one of those big time insightful people. It's just that I heard today on the big television that there's a potential that public policy with this new Supreme Court could be totally indifferent to environment. That's why I talked about it. However, Commissioner Dozier makes a strong and compelling point, and one which I had not thought of, and that is the point that the city has not, she says, been definitive with coming up with a date. And as she pointed out, being the owner of a utility, sometimes the foxes don't do good regulating themselves or making promises they don't want to keep. So maybe the burden in this instance is upon the county to go first and set a date and see if the city, as the owner of maybe more complicated issues of utility, if I own the utility, I wouldn't be the first one to draw no dates either. So I don't expect them to be, like aggressive in this regard. And maybe it's our burden because we're not the owner of utility to set a goal. So I like to just, with Commissioner, all due respect to the seconder, withdraw the motion and let's see where this may end up in our future.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Boss, the record showed that the maker of the motion withdrew his motion. Commissioner Daly, you have the floor.
Yeah, let me bring this in for Landon. And I was going to withdraw the second as well because I don't want to put this board in a position where we take any negative vote because we are all in the same page. We're all on the same page and we're moving forward. We are working hard for our targeted goals. On a personal note, I am comfortable with 2035, and I have, on a personal note, have made that public. But yes, I don't want to put us in a position where we take any negative votes. So I appreciate you withdrawing the motion. I will simply make the motion to accept the status report, which is option number 1. This has been a great conversation and look forward to continuing it.
Thank you, sir. Option number 1 has been moved by Commissioner Daly, seconded by the Vice Chair. I have Commissioner Dozier in queue to speak. Commissioner Dozier, you have the floor.
Appreciate the discussion. I echo what Commissioner Daly said, and I was going to offer another motion as well, and it could be an amendment or we could leave it here. Again, I would be comfortable if we said, similar to what the city said, we want to look towards 2035 as a possibility, and that we direct staff as soon as the city finishes their study to provide that information along with our own information and assess the possibility of 2035 or a different date. I think that would be an indication that we want to go in that direction, but it would allow us to look at that study in the future. So if you'd like to, okay, that would be great. Thank you.
Motion has been made by Commissioner Daly, amended by Commissioner Dozier. The amendment was accepted, correct? Oh, okay, okay. All right, that was not accepted. So the motion on the floor is just for option 1, staff recommendation, made by Commissioner Daly, seconded by the Vice Chair Jackson. All those in favor of the motion on the floor indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. We'll go now to item number 21.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, item number 21 is a status report on the J. Alford Greenway Trail Assessment. This was pulled by Commissioner Dozier. We're happy to answer any questions you might have.
Commissioner Dozier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know we probably have some speaker cards on this issue. I heard, as I believe others did, some concerns about the proposed mountain bike trails were offered. I believe that with some further clarification from Lee Davis, our Parks and Rec Director, and the County Administrator, that we have some comfort here, but I would like to hear from the citizens who asked for this to be pulled. Thank you.
Speakers?
Mr. Chairman, before the speakers make their way up, let me provide something which may be helpful for them as well. Again, we provided some clarification to the board on some of the emails that we received. Let's be very clear, the trails that are being added are single track, but they are additive. There's nothing being taken away. And I think that there was some reference relative to a bike designation that is a community designation, much like Tree City, USA. It doesn't have to do with designating the park as a mountain bike facility. So again, I think that there was some confusion there. As you had noted, Commissioner, we have staff here who could provide a lot more detail on that, but I think it was important just to provide that clarification. With that, we do have a few speakers on this item, and the first one is Sue Noyes, and forgive me if I mispronounced your name.
Name and address for the record, please.
Hello, I'm Sue Noyes. And I live at 5800 Veterans Memorial Drive out in our beautiful county. And there are several, I'm with Southern Trail Riders. There are several of us here that are going to be speaking, and I will keep my comments to an area that I was directly involved in. I was the equestrian consultant with Trail Dynamics, and I did that to assist them in their assessment of the trails at Alfred. The suggestion that is in the report that deals with the designation of a mountain bike ride center was discussed with Trail Dynamics. I was not in the meeting because I was an equestrian, but it was rejected by them. And based on that assessment, the ride center is not consistent with what Trail Dynamics proposed, and I request that it be deleted from the report. Equestrians are prevalent in this area and are attracted to Alfred for the serenity it offers and the opportunity to enjoy nature. Although current information is not available, statistics from 2005 showed that there were 10,000 horses in Leon, Wakulla, Jefferson, and Gadsden counties. 69% of these horses are used for pleasure or trail riding. Alfred should be kept natural for everyone to enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next speaker.
The next speaker is Jose Sanchez.
Name and address for the record, please.
Hi, my name is Jose Sanchez. I live at 1545 Myrtle Drive. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about what Vincent Long said about the IMBA trail designation, because I think that might throw up some red flags, people thinking that we are trying to convert Alfred Greenway into a trail designation, because IMBA is the International Mountain Biking Association. I should also like to say that I am the president of the Tallahassee Mountain Bike Association. So we are pretty much the people solely responsible for maintaining and helping the city of Tallahassee maintain most of the trails in town. The designation is not something that's going to go to a particular park, let's say like Alfred Greenway. Designation is a city. So it's a city type designation. So when it's posted on like the International Mountain Biking Association's website, they'll give you either a bronze, silver, or gold status. Gold, of course, being the highest status. Very few cities achieve gold status. Only places like Colorado and in Brevard, North Carolina, and places like that. We're probably shooting for like a bronze. And that's all based on the amount of single track trails that you have in town and the ease to the facility to get to those trails, which Tallahassee is really prime for something like that. So I just wanted to reiterate that this designation is not like a coup to take over a park and not allow horses and make it only a mountain biking destination. That is not the case for this designation. So I would like to put the trail riders at ease when it comes to that. And when it comes to the Alfred Greenway, as far as trails goes, I am totally fine with and very happy to share all of our green space with all of our users. Bird watchers, hikers, runners, equestrians, mountain bikers alike. So that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker.
Megan Altavia.
Name and address for the record, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Megan Altavilla, and I live at 2623 Arundel Way. I have horses, and I have had horses for 40 years. Absolutely love Alford Arms Greenway because it is a safe place for us to ride. There are, in a quick search on the Leon County website, on bike trails, there are 10 parks and facilities listed. The same search, Leon County Equestrian or Horse Trails, gives only 4 locations. So the fact is that we really don't need to add more bike trails, I feel. But if we do indeed add trails to Alford, they should be shared use trails. I was part of the public input and the community input and the online surveys and the on-site surveys for this study. And almost universally, people said, we want to leave the park the way it is. We love its natural state. So really, just give us improved signs. That's part of the recommendation. Everybody agrees with that. Give us some improved trails if you want to, but make them shared use. What would also be very nice, and which was very high in public comments, but isn't even included in this, is a recommendation to, for heaven's sakes, let's put a bathroom in there. That would make a lot of sense. I represent North Florida Paso Fino Horse Association. Our riders come from 7 counties around this area. They like to come to the Greenway to Alford Arms because there's parking, the trails are safe, as I said, there's plenty of sight lines so that bikers and equestrians can indeed share the trails safely. Nobody wants to run into an 1,100-pound horse when they're going 20, 30 miles an hour, I guarantee. So we don't want that to happen either. So please reconsider what you do with Alford Arms. Try to keep it in its current condition with only the improvements that the community asked for and agreed upon. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Administrator, next speaker.
Next speaker is Janet Olin.
Name and address for record, please, ma'am.
Janet Olin, 11049 Pennywa Trace. And if any of you are looking at me and going, I know her from somewhere, I retired after 24 years with the Supervisor of Elections Office. So it's a good chance I might have qualified you when you were a candidate. Coming here and being before you is like old home, and it's nice to see you, and thank you for having us. This agenda item has created controversy, and I don't think it needed to be, and what we, on behalf of the Southern Trail Riders, are hoping for is that the language that was further communicated through Lee Davis and through Vince Long is incorporated, is actually made a part of the agenda recommendation. And that is really why we asked and spoke with Commissioner Dozier and asked that this item be pulled so that we would have this opportunity to talk to you. Southern Trail Riders has been in existence for 28 years. They put money and muscle behind their organization. This agenda item references them as a participant in maintaining the single track trail, and that's a memorandum of understanding that is proposed, and yet we didn't get to see this recommendation until it came out as a public document to you and to the public. It would have been great, and what I have shared with a couple of the commissioners, back in December was probably one of the finest public meetings I've ever participated in. The East Side Library was packed. Over 70 trail users, standing room only, were in the room. Trail Dynamics was to lead that discussion, and they quickly had to abandon their agenda. They were going to break us into small groups, but there was so much dialogue coming from all directions, and the unified voice was, first, level out those speed bumps coming into Alford that jar all of our vehicles and make them speed humps. Improve signage so that those that are walking the trail, I can't tell you how many times I've been riding my horse and somebody with their baby stroller and their kids are lost. They don't know how to get back to the parking area, and they've got to do a diaper change, and they've got to do this and do that. And so we lead them back to the parking area. So signage was wanted, but there was a unity in leaving Alford Greenway the way it was, that it was pretty remarkable and is a jewel for all trail users to not divide into the woods and cut a new trail and have that disturb the wildlife. It was proposed to the group in the room to have a mountain bike exclusive trail. And the users in that room said, no, we want shared use, just like what was said here today. So take a step back, keep Alfred the way Alfred is, just tweak it a little bit. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Next speaker.
Joan Elder.
Joan Elder, 4084 Fairhill Way, Tallahassee, Florida. Good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you. I moved here in 1972, and this is the very first time I've ever been in a county commission meeting, so that tells you how important this horse topic is to me. And I also brought my horse to FSU with me, so I've had horses in this area a lot of years, and so it's a very important topic to me. So I'm speaking to you from the viewpoint of a taxpayer because my husband and I own two small businesses. Some of you frequent one of them, Ray Gordon Brake Service. So when you get that phone call, I'm the one that calls you, so you can put a face to the voice. And then I also have a horse farm we started in 1993, Emmanuel Farms. So I'm speaking to you from that viewpoint because we have those businesses. We also have multiple rental properties, so I pay lots and lots of Leon County taxes. So I'd like to concur with what Ms. Olin said. I was also at that meeting, and I think one of the biggest issues that we are concerned about is the fact that this issue of the IBA Ride Center was never, not one word of it brought up at the public meeting. It was not discussed, wasn't even mentioned. And so we had no opportunity for any dialogue, any input in regards to that. Now, I imagine most of you are not horse riders. Do I have any horse riders in there? No. So let me just give you a little bit of information about being with horses. There's protocols to safety with horses. Horses are not like the Western TV shows where they just ride along and nothing scares them and nothing spooks them. That's not what horses are all about. Horses scare easily. So my concern is from a safety viewpoint. So when we encounter these mountain bikers, these speed bikers, most of the time their focus is on speeding by. They are not the family bicyclists. The family that rides the little bicycles, they're very courteous to the horse people. They'll pull aside, they'll announce themselves, and we have no problem. But I will tell you, I've had a lot of issues with the mountain bikers that speed by. And when I yell at them to please kindly announce themselves, which is the safety protocol from the parks and for safety for everyone, they usually utter some nasty things at me. So the speed bikers are not in the same league as the family bikers. It's a totally different dynamics there. And speed bikers and horses do not mix well because they're a danger the way they fly by and they don't follow the protocol. As I said, the family bikers, they usually do. And if they follow the safety protocols, everyone is safer. You don't want a horse jumping on a person. You don't want a bicycle coming up behind us and scaring us. And we don't want to get dumped on the ground. So you want to take that into consideration. One of the reasons people board at my farm, aside from the fact it's a top quality boarding facility, is the fact, yes, I had to get that in there, no? It's the fact that we haul to Park to Ride every Saturday. And a lot of boarders don't have their own horse trailers, so my husband and I will haul them to the park. And so every Saturday we meet, and the first thing we say is, where are we going to ride today? Well, guess where 90% of the time we decide to ride? I call it Alfred Arms. I know it's not the technical name, but Alfred Arms. And why is that? We don't encounter too many mountain bikers.
Ma'am, could you finish your comments?
Oh, is that, sorry. I didn't know, just my first time, okay. Okay, in a nutshell, for the safety, senior citizens, we don't want to get dumped. We don't want speed bikers. We want to go back to the plan that everyone seemed to agree upon when we were at the meeting. We want to have the opportunity to look at the things that were brought up at the meeting. The signage, we need the signage. Just Saturday, I had a senior citizen couple stop me and say, how do I get back to the parking lot? Those are all valid, but just like a little leaven will spoil the whole batch, putting this mountain biker ride center will spoil it, and I'll try to close real fast. I did pull up the website. I wanted to see what the website had to say about the Mountain Bike Ride Center. And this is their motto. Our vision is that everyone has a place to ride a mountain bike. Well, as horse riders, we want the same opportunity and equality. Horse riders need to be able to ride their horses and have a safe environment to do so. The difference is that the bikers already have a lot of trails, a lot of parks that are designated. They can ride, and horses are not allowed in those parks. We have very few parks to ride in. And Alpha Arms is our jewel crown. That's the one we ride 90% of the time because it is conducive to horseback riders. Thank you very much for your time and consideration, and please delete that last item about the IMBA Ride Center.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am. Next speaker.
The final speaker is Linda Voss.
Name and address for the record, please.
Good afternoon. I'm Linda Voss. I live at 8501 Veterans Memorial Drive. Thank you for having us today. Thank you for pulling this from consent. As I concur with my other equestrian friends here today, we do not want to see any more division at Alfred Arm. Let's enjoy the shared use trails. It is difficult with a horse to go places. We don't have the opportunity to go everywhere the cyclists can go because of our special needs. And as one rider put it, you certainly don't want to have an encounter with a great big animal. So we would enjoy it if the county would consider just going by what the public comments were at the December meeting, where we all concurred we would love more shared use trails. But let's also consider the equestrians really are limited where they can go. Could we promote this park as more equestrian friendly than others possibly, just through advertising? And we do want mountain bikers to have their place also, but they have so many places in Leon County that we are not allowed. So I ask that we make this park more equestrian friendly. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Any more speakers? No. Seeing none, we'll go to Commissioner comment. Commissioner Dozier, you pulled the item. You are the first to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Perhaps this is one of those times where we have a lot of good ideas. We've got a lot of good use. We want more recreation. And because we have so much increased use, we're having to reflect on these things in a new way. So as I shared with Janet when we talked on the phone, I fully do support this item, and I want to say that up front. Jose, I think you heard, and thank you for being here today to represent the association, maybe a little more education on the etiquette of trails for our mountain bikers, and I know a few of them, so I think that can be pushed out. I think that's a great thing, and we can do that with the signage that's also in this item. But I do think that clarifying that the designation is for the whole county is important. I think that was a point of misunderstanding. It wasn't about J.R. Offord, but it was the whole county. And this aligns with a lot of what we've talked about, City to the Sea Trail, through a lot of the other projects we have in Blueprint and other things. Looking in the future for additional equestrian trails, I would love to see that. If we've got 4, that was a nice stat. I mean, I think that should be kind of in the mix. We've opened the St. Mark's Headwaters, and I know that that is a good place if it's not too wet. So maybe looking at other options. And I think just an ongoing conversation to make sure that we've got the education right, that the signage is working, and that we can accommodate both uses, particularly as we attract new people to the community. It may work on a lot of different parks and a lot of different trails, but there may be one trail that's a problem. And I think our Parks and Rec folks and others can stay engaged in that conversation. It may need to be a more formal process as we go forward. But I do want to make a motion for this agenda item with a clarification that it's a full county designation that we're looking at that aligns with a lot of other things, and would encourage county administrator to bring us any opportunities in the future for additional equestrian trails and ways to address issues when we do have conflicts in certain parks.
Thank you. Motion made by Commissioner Dozier for staff recommendation with the caveat that the language will be clear that the trails are for everyone, correct?
Specifically, it was the question of the IMBA, the International Mountain Bike Association,
for the whole
that is a county designation, not a park designation. So we're not changing the nature.
Got it.
There may be other trails, but yeah, that's it.
Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Deloge. I have no more commissioners in queue to speak. Move now to a vote. All those in favor of the motion on the floor indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Commissioners, we're now moving to citizens to be heard on non-agenda items.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, we have one speaker on citizens to be heard on non-agenda items, Robert Feuerstein.
Name and address for the record, please.
My name is Robert Feuerstein. Good try. I've been living with this for 100 years, it seems like. I'm a new member to Tallahassee. As of May 23rd, we bought property here in the county of Tallahassee. I was born and raised for about, let's do my math right, 60-some years in LA County, in a place called Redondo Beach in Torrance, and moved to San Diego for about 10 years, and now I'm here to retire in Tallahassee. So I moved from the West Coast to the East Coast. I've been very much involved in my younger life, when in my 20s, with the City of Torrance as commissioner on 3 different commissions. Since I'm retired, and I enjoyed it back then, I would like to become a commissioner in the future. So I'll be sending through the process that you have my CV, but I just want to have a face before you guys go on break for the summer. So when you receive it, you'll have something to connect it to. I live in the county. I'm on, I forgot to give it Robert Feuerstein at 2616 Stonegate Drive. And that's it. On the commissions, we had many topics. I was on the Planning Commission for a short period, so we had bicycle paths to contend with. I was also, as a teenager, involved with a place called Los Angeles Wilman, and we finally got a path that goes through Torrance, from Palos Verdes, all up the West Coast, up to Malibu. And this was back in, let's see, I was 1965, 66, 67. So I've been involved with different levels for different reasons for my whole life. So I'd like to become a commission here to help out the county of Tallahassee with whatever you need from me, with my knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You said the Planning Commission, correct? You said the Planning Commission?
I was on the Planning Commission for a very short period, for about a year, but I've been on the Cable TV Advisory Board. I've been on, I'm trying to remember, I don't have my CV in front of me.
For clarification, you said you would like to be a part of the Planning Commission here?
Oh, any commission.
Oh, any commission.
I went on the website this morning through help of your staff.
Okay.
And they directed me, I have to see what's available.
Thank you.
And who is up for not being, how you call it, coming back to the second term. So I'm not too sure if there is an opening on the Planning Commission.
Thank you, sir.
I see something. Yes, I'm interested on the Planning Commission.
Yes, sir.
I know the kind of worms.
It's all good. But I will make sure somebody from staff gets with you. I think somebody from staff is already working with you, but continues to work with you to tell you about the process that we have here in place as far as applying and picking your top 3, and then we'll be able to review them as commissioners. And if you tell us what those top 3 are, I'm pretty sure, especially if you come here to tell us that you're interested, we can get you on one of those committees. So thank you for coming out.
I appreciate it very much. Thank you,
sir. Commissioners, I hope you don't mind me having that two-way conversation there. I know this is the part of the agenda where we don't. It is 4:10, and we're now moving to general business. Commissioners, I plan with the scheduled public hearings that we have to get through general business before we break. Item number 23, Mr. Attorney.
Mr. Chairman, this is a request that the Commission made through, I think, initially Commissioner Lindley, for a status report on the litigation which is pending. I would like to say around the state, but it is by a number of municipalities as well as at least 2 counties. The question is, how do we wish to, if at all, participate in that litigation? There are a couple of ways to do that, one of which is to file our own lawsuit challenging the gun preemption and its penalty section. Another way, if you wish to do something sooner than later, would be to direct us to try to intervene in one of the existing pieces of litigation. The other alternative is to wait until a trial court decision is rendered. I'm pretty sure that either side will appeal that and then direct us to file some sort of amicus brief in the appellate decision. Or you could choose to just sit on the sideline and see how the rest of the litigation works. We did not give you a recommendation because I'm not really sure how soon the commission wanted to participate, if at all. But if you want to participate sooner than later, then I think the easier and probably cheaper way of doing it is to try to piggyback on one of the existing pieces of litigation and direct us to intervene. If we're unable to do that, then I can come back to you and say, listen, we're going to have to choose another path. So that's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney. Just for clarification, staff recommendations for option 1 to accept the staff report on legal action challenging the state preemption of local gun laws, correct?
Right.
I have Commissioner Lindley in queue to speak. Commissioner Lindley.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Herb. This is directed primarily at the state's preemption of local gun laws, and we've been through a recent episode with that. But I think the greater cause here is that it's time for Leon County Commission to fight back against the legislative habit of preemption of local government activities. And this is one small step that I would very much like to see us pursue. I originally and we have other counties and cities that are protesting what I think is an outrageous overstepping of legislative authority. So I would like to see very much, I think it's fine for us to piggyback on the lawsuits that are already kind of in the works. I originally thought to file an amicus brief would be sufficient, but I think we should get a little tougher and go on as a plaintiff to some of the others. And I'm not sure if that would mean after a trial court has rendered a decision and going into an appeals level, or if we would do that right away. But I would like to make a motion not to accept the staff report as is, but for our board to move forward and say to the Florida legislature that we're standing in line to try to speak for our own citizens. I mean, when we are rendered mute by legislative action, even the citizens are not getting an opportunity to talk to us about what they would like to see in our own county, in gun legislation, but in other ones too. Plastic bag bans, for example, all kinds of things that come down the pike that we are limited in our activities. And I know there are some that it's very important for the state to have a unified one-size-fits-all legislation, but I don't think it's true in most cases. So my motion would be not to accept the status report, but as an alternative to move forward with our joining or I don't know how you'd say the words exactly, joining or becoming a plaintiff with the existing lawsuits that are going.
You would be an intervener, but that gives you the status of the then plaintiffs.
Is there a second?
So that's my motion. Love to hear your comments.
Motion been made by Commissioner Lindley, seconded by Commissioner Lowe's for option 2 with Leon County becoming an intervener in the other cases against the state related to preemption gun laws. I have Commissioner Deloge, Commissioner Protnick here to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. While I differ with y'all politically oftentimes on gun issues, because that's come up a number of times, I think home rule is one area where I'm going to draw the line and say this was what I would consider gross overreach. And I remember when this actually was brought up to us, and even Herb said, I can't counsel that you don't do this, because the way it read to us was you will be removed from office, you will be personally fined $5,000, you cannot use your county attorney as your representative. which is unbelievable. There's a balance between the state and the federal and local government, and frankly, home rule should be where it ends. We're the people that understand the needs in the communities, and we get voted in or out based on the job we do. Now, again, this is not a reflection on a gun issue. This is a home rule issue, and in this case, there was horrible overreach, and I tend to agree. And we had some fairly innocuous gun laws here that, you can't shoot on or across a state road today. That's a given. Well, we said you can't shoot on or across a county-maintained road. Seemed to make sense to me. No guns in county parks. There's some things that we got run over. And I'm not trying to change the gun law, but I think the home rule thing is important here. And I wholeheartedly agree with you, Commissioner.
And on point, I'm not discussing this in light of the gun laws specifically, but the broader issue, the much broader issue, in my opinion. So I respect exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Proctor.
I'm glad y'all have woke up. Yeah, I told y'all a long time ago that for the legislature to put us in jail, to preempt an area which they claim exclusivity about guns, that we would be fined and put out of office for even commenting on guns and regulating those things in this community. And since then, high school children have done what we did not do, and they've made sense. They've banded together. Their voices have been heard, and they've made comments on guns, and they have secured public policy changes on guns, something that the 7 of us were unwilling to do previously. So I think the precedent that has been already set at street level by young people in the state of Florida, we should follow them. In the area, I can't think of why it's so sacred that among the things which we can legislate, but it is very sacred that home rule, charter government, all of those things which embody the right of us to legislate within the county, that we are elected to be the affiliates of state governing. We have that right. So thank you all for catching up, Commissioner Lindley, and I fully support.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Jackson.
I'd like to not be redundant, but I will be. I think it's a larger issue. It's not a gun issue as well. And I think that this is a stand for local rule. And I think it's important that I go on record and say that I support it on the larger spectrum that it's a challenge to us doing what's best for our constituents and the people in our county, whether it be guns or whether it be leash laws. I just wanted to make sure that I was on record with that.
Thanks, sir. Motion on the floor is for option 2, with Leon County intervening in lawsuits to become part, made by Commissioner Lindley, seconded by Commissioner Deloge. All those in favor of the motion on the floor indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Item number 24, Mr. Administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Item number 24, Commissioners, seeks your approval of the grant awards for the Community Redevelopment Agency's Art, Cultural, and Heritage Grant Program. Commissioners, as you know, pursuant to our CRA interlocal agreement, the utilization of our tourism development tax proceeds requires the approval of the Board of County Commissioners as well as the City Commission. As part of the CRA's process and the grant review process, there was a citizen committee appointed to review proposals to make funding recommendations. I would direct you, Commissioners, to the yellow revised agenda modification because, as you know, the CRA just met yesterday and had their deliberations and made their recommendations. They're outlined in the item before you. I'll just hit the very highlights of that, which were as follows: $8.1 million for TLH Arts, $1 million for Lemoyne Arts, and $189,000 for John Gilmore Riley House. And both, again, Commissioners, County and City Commissions must approve these grant awards. The City Commission is scheduled to consider the CRA recommendations on Wednesday. As I wrap up here, Commissioners, with just a quick introduction of the item, I will note that Roxanne Manning from the CRA is here, as well as Carrie Post and Ken Morris from the county staff, all of whom I'm sure are very happy to answer any questions you might have. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll hand it back to you.
Commissioner Parker. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. County Attorney, is the CRA and the City Commission, are they identical, the same person?
Legally, no, but the seats are occupied by the same individuals.
So the trial court and the appellate court are identical?
In name, yes, sir.
Okay. So if the county commission takes exception to the CRA's configured dispensation of funds, and the CRA voted a certain way, the county disagrees, but the city commission agreed with the CRA, where does that leave us?
It would, well, you have to agree. If you don't, then it can't pass by a CRA and city vote.
Okay. So there has to be a symmetrical, harmonious blend of all three, which means that the county has as much weight as 1/3 of this trilogy. The county has as much weight as either the city or the CRA.
Yes, sir.
That's
correct.
Thank you. I just wanted to know the rules, the parameters of our strength. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Proctor. We have 11 speakers on the item. Each speaker will be given 3 minutes. When you come up, give your name and address for the record, please. Mr. Administrator, first speaker.
Donald Gray, to be followed by Terry Galloway.
Name and address for the record, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Donald Gray. I reside at 1410 Alban Avenue here in Tallahassee and in our county. I just wanted to speak briefly. I am an urban designer and also a principal in the architecture firm Fitzgerald Collaborative Group. We've been very privileged to work on this project. It's very exciting with Jake Kiker and his group and all of the stakeholders in the project. Also have been meeting with Ajax Construction, who would likely be our builder on the project. And just wanted to say briefly, we've been very energized by their group, all of the young artists, and also all the interest from other artist groups in our city since the project has gotten a little more attention. So thank you for your consideration, and that's all I'm going to say. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker.
Terry Galloway, to be followed by Laura Johnson.
Name and address for the record, please.
Good afternoon. I'm Terry Galloway. I live at 1402 South Meridian, and I was there yesterday at the city and CRA meeting. And by the time the city was given this recommendation, and by the time they decided to modify it, I, for one, was relieved, even though I don't have a horse in that race. I don't. But one of the things that had struck me in all of the conversations that were going up, all of the testimonies, was that the project that was rated third was one of the few projects that actually ticked every box. It was money that was meant to be for performing arts, and it was the only performing arts organization on the finalist. Not only that, it was public-private. It was going to take a public building, redo it, and make a diverse a population, bring it there. Now, I know where this is because I'm nosy as can be. And so I live in the South Side. My sisters live in the South Side. I have the Piggly Wiggly t-shirt. I shop there. So I walked down to see what this is about. And what I did is I walked down, if you go by the subway and you go by where Proof is going to be, and I'm very happy that that's coming. And I wish it were there tonight because I could use a drink after this, but I walked under the bridge and I saw this building, and it's an ugly, abandoned public building. I saw the Anita Favors Lake. I saw the little amphitheater. I saw this wonderful thing that we were told when this overpass and all of this was going to become a food truck place. It was going to have all of this wonderful stuff happening. And I thought, well, here you go. This money, this allotment of money, why wasn't it going to something that ticked all those boxes? And it's on the South Side, and it's bringing people from FAMU, from FSU, from Railroad Square, from Cascades, from all of my neighborhood. And I thought, you talk about a game changer. That's what they were charged to do, is to give money to a game changer. there were wonderful projects that came up, and a lot of them got thrown by the wayside. And there were some wonderful projects that were approved. But this was the game changer. And so when they decided not to take the recommendation, which is part of that process, and decided to modify it, I was elated because I could see what would happen there. It would be art under the overpass, and it would be wonderful and celebratory, diverse, and a wonderful way to help the struggling development of the South Side, which is something we've always wanted. I certainly hope that you will take the city's recommendation. It delights me. Thank you. I hope you too.
Thank you, ma'am. Next speaker.
Laura Johnson, to be followed by Tom Lewis.
Name and address for the record, please.
Good afternoon. I'm Laura Johnson, 6228 Buck Run Circle. I'm here today as an advocate for the arts, having served on executive committees and advisory boards for several theater organizations here in town, and currently serve as executive director for another performing arts organization. As someone who's been a long part of the performing arts in Tallahassee, I'm here to comment and speak about agenda item 24. We all know that this has been a difficult process with requests supported by very, very passionate people. However, we also know from comments made at the TDC meeting, in the community, and as recently as yesterday at the CRA board meeting, that we had hoped to see this funding applied to performing arts groups whose needs have been well documented in the cultural plan and for whom it was the original intent that this funding be spent. So I was buoyed yesterday as the CRA board recommended $1.8 million in funding for the TLH Arts Project. The TLH Arts, Inc. is a new and truly transformative project that serves our entire community, supporting and serving multiple performing arts groups, including music, dance, and theater, and providing a space to rehearse, perform, record, and teach, and giving them an opportunity to grow, increase viability, profitability, and productivity, all the while attracting more tourists to Tallahassee. If your desire too is to see some of these funds applied to the performing arts, the TLH Arts Inc. project, whose score was just 3 points from the first ranking one, this project is a new, exciting, inclusive project, as Terry was just speaking to, that serves multiple groups and multiple disciplines in our community. This innovative project will create programming, events, performances, and provide opportunity for artists and our visitors year-round. Your decision today will undoubtedly mean forward motion for whichever project or projects that you believe are most consistent with the use of these funds. I thank you for your consideration and appreciate so much the opportunity you have to make a difference for the performing arts in our community. Thank you for your time, consideration, and support.
Thank you, ma'am. Next speaker.
Thomas Lewis, to be followed by Kelly Dozier.
Name and address for the record, please, sir.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thomas Lewis, 7099 Oxbow Road, Tallahassee. Commissioners, until the City Commission meeting yesterday, the Big Bend Community Development Corporation was in the number 2 position on the selection, and there was a lot of dialogue about the organization. And there was an article in the Democrat last week that was totally devoid of context relative to our organization. And we were lent money by the city to do community development and revitalization. And the question was never asked in the article, what did we do with the money? Well, the answer is that in Frenchtown, we constructed, it's currently under construction. It'll be finished 15th of next month, a $20 million affordable housing development that is just exquisite. I know that Commissioner Maddox, Chairman Maddox, and I had a chance to do some tours of affordable housing in the Central Florida area. Tampa area, and nothing that we saw could hold a candle to what we constructed on the corner of Georgia and Macomb Street. And one of the interesting things about it, there's not $1 of CRA money in this $20 million project. Not a dollar. 100% of the tax base or the tax increment will go to the CRA fund, and that's the kind of work that the Big Bend Community Development Corporation has done over the last 18 years that we've been in existence. We're responsible for constructing over 125 affordable houses in Frenchtown. In the last 19 months, the Big Bend CDC has paid back the City of Tallahassee's Affordable Housing Trust Fund over $812,000, $812,237, and the remaining $120,000 is guaranteed by Wells Fargo Bank to be paid back out of our developer's fee. We took our developer's fee, committed to pay back money we owed the city, never asked for any forgiveness of any money, and paid it back, and then took $50,000 of our developer's fee, matched it with another $50,000 of one of our partners in our Ashmore project, and committed $100,000 of our resources to the construction of the Ashmore Museum. So I would hope that as you review the things this evening, that you would consider that the Ashmore Museum on the corner of Brevard and Macomb, right next to the Casanas Frenchtown Village, the combination of two would be a significant game changer in the Frenchtown community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Kelly Dozier, to be followed by Colleen Castile.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm very happy to be here in front of you, and just thrilled that Lemoyne Arts, by Bram Kelly Dozier, 2101 East Randolph Circle, and I am the current president of the Lemoyne Board. Lemoyne Arts is thrilled to have been a part of this process and to have actually been ranked the #1 project in the process. Lemoyne has a master plan. It's called Art for Always, and this multi-phase master plan to completely renovate and rejuvenize the properties that Lemoyne currently is on in downtown Tallahassee. This was our proposal was just part of this multi-phase plan, and we're planning to move forward with all phases as much as possible and as quickly as possible. We have several people here that, if I may, I'd like to ask them to stand up, those who are here to support Lemoyne. Thank you very much. Some of them may also come up and speak. We've been going through this process for quite a long time, and we understand where things are today. And in the interest of creating unity in the community, we would like to suggest that you approve what the CRA suggested so that this process can come to a conclusion and the monies can be distributed and those who have been recommended can get on with their projects. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Next speaker.
Colleen Castile, to be followed by Christique Henry.
Good afternoon. My name is Colleen Castile. I reside at 3209 Adwood Drive. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present before you on your consideration for allocation of these dollars. We did go through I represent Lemoyne. I'm not on the board any longer. I served as president for 3 years, I think, 2 years, and served during Lemoyne's darkest times. We are a 53-year-old organization. We have weathered numerous recessions, and when we were faced with closing our doors or asking the community for help, we didn't come to the county commission for funding. We didn't go to the city commission for funding. We went to the community, and we said, do you want to keep Lemoyne alive? Do you want to keep us in a situation where we can continue to educate your children and provide numerous venues for art expression for children at your youngest age to adults? And we did that. We were heartily supported by the community. We came back. We have probably 4 years now of excellent financial situation. And we like to go through the processes that you put out for us. So we play the game as it's laid out. We get our points as we're scored. And in this case, we scored number 1. And we do appreciate yesterday's vote, and we are here for unity in the community. So we do hope that you support the vote as recommended yesterday. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next speaker.
Christique Henry, to be followed by Jeffrey Mandel.
While that speaker comes up, just for clarifications, Commissioner, on our original agenda item, the recommendation from staff was from the committee. We have a addition to the agenda today that is staff recommendation option number 1 from the CRA from yesterday. Just want to make sure that we're clear what option 1 is in this meeting. Name and address for record, please, ma'am.
Hey, y'all. Christique Henry, 3121 Pontiac Drive. First of all, how did I get here? Well, I live in Southside. I love Southside. And when I saw the information about the TLH Arts, Inc. project, and from a real estate broker standpoint, saw the economic impact of a project of that magnitude down FAMU Way, there's no way in the world I couldn't be here in support of that project. But also, when I got to go and see my friend Darius Baker the other day, engaging with his youth at the Shed Teens Edition, and to be able to see that kind of exchange happen in a facility off Lake Anita, knowing how Anita Favors felt about our youth, that is why I'm here. So you don't need to explain the economic impact side. I'm sure you all understand what an arts center that has a huge following will do for that corridor. But what I'm here to do is excite you, because the acts that they will bring, the groups they will bring already have following. 10,000 socially, 41 visits internationally and nationally. These groups are in Tallahassee, and the TLH Arts Inc. will be a home and an incubator for content so that they can expand their work and monetize and commoditize the talent that we have here in this city. So I ask you to support this recommendation from the city, because it is going to be the bomb. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next speaker.
Jeffrey Mandel, to be followed by Jake Kiker.
Good afternoon, Jeffrey Mandel, 1641 Lake Ella Drive. I'm here speaking in support of the TLH Arts Project. I don't think I can possibly match in eloquence or excitement what the speech before me, but I've been part of the performing arts scene in Tallahassee since 1983, and I've watched many, many performing arts organizations come and go, including, sadly, recently the Somo Theater. And the reason they go is always the same. It's the lack of real estate. It's not lack of audience or talent. It's that small groups can't afford to build a theater any more than one musician can build a symphony hall or one painter an art museum. We do need help on this. Tallahassee has been stuck at a place for a long time now. And in recognition, the tax was imposed to build a performing arts center because that's what we need to go forward. There is a chance for a real transformation, a breakthrough, a quantum change in the arts in Tallahassee, taking us from a local scene to a regional one by getting the kind of resources beyond what any one group will ever do, technical resources, marketing resources, in many ways. We can have a cross-fertilization of dance, spoken word, theater, music. We can have an incubator not only for performing, but for teaching, career development, technical skills, wide area marketing. This project has support from at least a dozen arts groups, and there are many, many more who will be very happy to join in once they have a place to make themselves a home. The existing facilities in Tallahassee are maxed out. There isn't rental available. Theaters are doing more and more performances. They don't have space. We can make the quantum leap with this project. Performance arts spaces are very expensive. We need help, and I urge you to support the decision made at the CRA yesterday. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker.
Jake Kiker to be followed by Darius Baker.
I'll be very brief because I know I cannot match what the other folks have done. Working with these arts groups, one thing I've learned is no matter how good of a communicator you think you might be, working with people in the actual performing arts, you are never going to match them. But thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm incredibly happy. The last time I actually spoke before this body was on I think the first annual report of Domi Station with Michael Wyden. And I am equally excited today as we stand here with the prospect of TLH Arts and what we think it can do for the community. We think it's going to give a home to a lot of organizations. We know that it will, and there's going to be a seat at the table for all of them. Thank you very much. We cannot be more excited to see Lemoyne go on and do the things that they're going to do, to see Alfred Mees Barnes and their project in Frenchtown go on and do what we know it's going to do. And I can assure you our team is going to work very, very hard to bring something to this community that will, A, make us proud, and B, provide the impact and the home for the arts that we know it can. And just thank you very much.
Thanks, sir. Next speaker.
Darius Baker to be followed by the final speaker, Jim McMurtry.
How are you doing? My name is Darius Baker. I reside at 2809 Farrington Drive. I am the creator of Tallahassee Nights Live, which is a production that's been going on monthly here in Tallahassee. Oh, yeah. I don't know if you guys have heard about Tallahassee Nights Live, but it's a production that's been going on monthly here in our beautiful city for 10 years. I've created this. I haven't had any investors.
I'll give you 30 more seconds, but you got to explain that.
Oh, well, this is something that Commissioner Proctor has been a great supporter of TNL. That's our abbreviation from the beginning. And every time someone does a great job, gets a standing ovation, Commissioner, he'll be the first one to stand up in the front and do that, and everyone else will. So I appreciate you so much.
Please extend this time. I had to know about it. Okay, go ahead, Doc. Sorry.
Thank you. But it's my baby, and when Jake brought the project to me and I heard about it and I felt this heart, I felt this sincerity, I felt as though, TNL really needs to team up with this. We've been doing this for 10 years now, no investors, this is all off of me, because I believe in the talent that we have here in our city. And out of Tallahassee Nights Live, we have 2 Grammy Award winners. We have several artists that have gone on to receive record deals, numerous different accolades, proclamations, things that we're just so appreciative of. And I think that Tallahassee Nights Live deserves to team up with them and to get this funding that we can actually, it's a plug and play. We don't have to, we have the blueprint already. We have an album out right now that's entered in at 19 over in the UK right now. It's nothing that needs to be, that you have to put a lot of work in. It's there. The talent is there. What we did recently is we did a teen edition that really, really surprised me. We did a teen edition at the American Legion, and the place was absolutely filled with youth from all different high schools, Lincoln, Leon, all of our great high schools, and they came in with their own instruments. It was sponsored by Music Masters that actually provided the sound and provided the PA, and this is something that opened my eyes because all of our kids, they don't want to go to clubs and do things like that. We have to provide them with something to go to. So when they came in and they had their instruments and they were able to play with some of us who have doctorates, we have degrees in music, we have bachelors in music, and to sit there and actually teach them along with shedding and just showing them how to do it, those kids were absolutely amazed, and they were just so, it was just a beautiful sight. And I think that this development, showing them how to hold a microphone, interviews, etiquette, all that kind of stuff in a developmental stage, we need that. We need it. Tallahassee Nights Live is honored to be a part of it, and I would be so happy if you guys would support the CRA in their decision. Thank you so much.
Thanks, sir. Next speaker.
Final speaker, Jim McMurtry.
Name and address for the record, please.
Hi, my name is Jim McMurtry, and I live at 1812 Fernando Drive. I am here mainly speaking as a taxpayer, and I would like to thank the CRA for recognizing the original intent of this tax money and hope and encourage the Commission to accept the recommendation of the CRA, and I thank you.
Thank you, sir. I have no more speakers. Thank everybody for coming out to speak to this issue today. I have Commissioner Dozier, Commissioner Lindley, Commissioner Proctor in queue to speak. Commissioner Dozier, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If we had taken up the original agenda item, I would simply be speaking right now to say I'm going to recuse myself, not because there is any direct conflict, but because there is a perception, of course. My father's wife, Kelly, has been involved with Lemoyne for a long time, although I think she's put in countless hours and money and not reaped any of that benefit directly. However, given what has transpired and some of the process questions that I thought we were going to get into today, I had a conversation with the county attorney yesterday about how I might be able to participate in the conversation on the process pieces and on TLH Arts. I think there are some other ways that we might be able to help get both of these great projects off the ground. And I would like to participate in that conversation. The county attorney told me that we are allowed to participate in the conversation anyhow, but we typically do not. And so Mr. Chair, if anyone has concerns about this, I would love to hear it, but I would, and I can make my comments up front, I would like to participate a bit in the process questions, and then I would recuse myself from a vote if and when Lemoyne comes up in that vote.
Mr. Attorney, you see any problem?
No.
Commissioners? Seeing none, accepted.
Okay. Thank you. So this happens in many families here, but I am in the position where I kind of disagree with family right now. But I am also thrilled that Lemoyne, all of you were here today to support the recommendations of the CRA. So I think there is a very important conversation that we need to have about being true to what's happened in the last 5 years. I stopped counting at 16 votes that affirmed this grant was for arts, culture, and heritage. At no time did the city, county, TDC, or CRA board limit it to performing arts. Absolutely, the cultural plan indicates that the need that everyone has talked about. Jim McMurtry, I remember, we worked together at then Theater Tallahassee, or Tallahassee Little Theater in the 90s. Wonderful. I celebrate the arts in this community, and we do have a need for that performance space and rehearsal space. But things got really muddy, and I have felt very bad and actually have really appreciated the TLH Arts team and the Lemoyne team for the dialogue that they have had in recent days, understanding that this is two great projects, passionate people, and they're advocating for them. Everything else got a little messy and a little complicated. So I wanted to say more about that, thinking that we may not go with the CRA's recommendation from yesterday, and I'm going to reserve those comments for after further discussion. So the only other comment I wanted to make for now is that I believe strongly, even when I saw the ranking originally from the advisory committee and knowing the need and what a phenomenal project the TLH Arts project is, the Arts TLH, forgive me, that if there were money left over within this process, and looking at the capital improvements grant that we set up, COCA's administered, same source of money, TDC money, and the bed tax, $250,000 a year, and Audra told us that it probably can't, the executive director of COCA, forgive me, Audra, that it probably can't be administered, it would probably hit the life of that grant, because not many organizations qualify. So we have other money in the mix that could help support both of these great projects that both meet the need in the community. I also heard Commissioner Ziffer's comments at the city yesterday talking about, in the same vein, getting creative and trying to look for ways that the city could help both of these projects, and particularly Arts TLH, happen. And the city has a lease on the building, things like that. So I would just like to offer, in whatever discussion happens next, that I don't think, we're all fatigued. We're all frustrated by this process for sure. It's taken many, many years. But The CRA will be working with whomever is awarded the money over the next few months to revise plans. Roxanne, you said that yesterday at the meeting. So I don't think it interrupts the process at all if we direct the county administrator and city manager to look at other ways, capital improvements grant, the lease of the building, anything like that, to step it up a little bit so we can help both of these projects succeed. I'm not saying that either can get the full $3 million they asked for, nor should they. But I think there is more we can do, and I would really love to see that as part of the mix in the discussion and some ideas brought back to us in September. So, Mr. Chair, with that, I will, if you don't mind, come back into some other questions on just the process, how we got here after the discussion about this, and if Lemoyne is in the motion that's made in the future, I will recuse myself. Thank you.
Thank you. So I have Commissioner Lindley, Commissioner Proctor, Commissioner Deloge in queue to speak. Commissioner Lindley?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Dozier, I appreciate your interest in trying to facilitate more resources for the arts. Particularly appreciative of Lemoyne for being very gracious in this. This has been a tough process. For clarity, I would like to make a motion that we go ahead and approve the staff recommendation, option 1, which is in sync with what the CRA voted on yesterday.
For a second?
I don't think that eliminates the possibility of our looking for further ways for the county and the city to possibly find other resources on down the road. But I simply don't want to throw this into another round of discussions and arguments going back to the city tomorrow, where who knows what would happen if we reject this today. I just feel like I'm ready to move on this. It's been probably more than 3 years since this money became available. I don't think the process has been particularly one for the record books in terms of the best we could have done. But I have felt all along that it was necessary to have performing arts in the mix. I think many people in this community counted on a performing arts building of some sort when we started the whole process years ago. It's moved along in a lot of different ways, but for me, the time has come to move forward with this money now. I think the decisions made yesterday, I know they were tough, but I'm comfortable with them, and I would like to see our board support that now and work on other aspects of it later if the board desires. So that would be my motion. Thank you for the second.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioner Proctor.
The interesting process that we have here is that the CRA spoke yesterday. We speak today, and the CRA has 48 hours in which to change their costumes and come back and sit in the exact same room in which the City Commission, acting as the CRA 48 hours previously, probably applying and exercising the exact same thought, the same biases or objectiveness or whatever. I don't see a change occurring in 48 hours from the people who were the CRA. I really don't mind if we needed to duke it out a little bit and argue a little bit more. I'm okay with that part of it. It's just that in terms of what was purpose for the performing arts money, I think that we may have reached about as good as a bad process can yield. So I am disappointed that that the Big Bend Community Development Corporation got roughed up, and I think that it always bothers me when somebody moves the goalpost. It bothers me when the rules change in the middle of the game. And when the CRA calls out and suggests that somebody owed the city some money, it's kind of hard to argue or to feel like there's due process and that there's no criteria that says that if you owe the city some money, because we all owe somebody some money. And it's just hard to know what's so unrighteous about owing the city, because everybody owes the city every month some money if it ain't nothing but a light bill. We all owe them, and sometimes we owe them, for 2 months, whatever it is. But when the CRA tells you we ain't gonna support you, or you out of it because you owe the city some money, it's real bad, because when you go to the city to talk about what the CRA done, I'm the same exact folk. So it ain't fair in that regard. There's no place to appeal. There is no third body. There is a bifurcated one body that equals two, and then the county in this process approve whatever. So I agree with Commissioner Dozier. We may differ in terms of distinctly what of the process we may have problems with, but this occurred previously. When it came up, I asked in a memo that we get a new CRA director back in October sometime. And one of the things that I tried to make the CRA aware of is that the organization down there on Brevard Street never got heard by the CRA because supposedly they owed money for a back loan to some little group. So when we decide that owing money is not illegal in America. Credit is, and the fact that people differ over debt, I mean, that's what this building is about, differences being settled. And I just thought that it was a cheap shot. Even though the project may not have fit the description for our use of this performing arts money, but to pull that out the hat is, I'm really, but let me say to you, Mr. Lewis, that I don't think that, I think you're going to be wasting time when you spoke to the CRA and they spoke, and then tomorrow you go back and meet with the city commission. I think it's going to be pretty much the same way, so there ain't nowhere to go. I will support this measure that we have, the motion been made by Commissioner Lindley. Been making some good motions kind of lately, Commissioner. You've been sitting by me as Rubino. You've been doing real good. And I'm going to support that good that you've motioned. Now, I want to say for the record, as we close the books on this, that I'm very disappointed that we did not achieve a performing arts center. I thought we had the wherewithal as a community to do that. I mean, we've done some big things. We have a beautiful, big old football stadium. We achieved that. We got that done. We just can't get that performing arts. We couldn't get that off the ground. And it's hard to get that fairground off the ground. There's just some things we can't get. But I thought that the Gayfers store, a remake of that would have been a great start. I always thought that the Gayfers was there by the I-10. I thought that it was surrounded by hotels on the street, eateries, parking, lights were there. Everything was already there. It looked like the Junior Kennedy Center. It looked like performing arts. We could have expanded those walls and all of that, but Gayfer still sits there, and it ain't home to nothing. And but Spiders playing in the corner, and it could have been a performing arts center, in my opinion. I want to say that for the record, Ms. Voss, that it should have been a performing arts center. And I'm disappointed that we missed it this time. But maybe Aaron, Aaron, you over there? Aaron. All right. So maybe somewhere down the road, we need a performing arts center, Aaron. So I'm telling you that right now. I couldn't get it done. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Next, I have Commissioner Deloge, and queue to speak, Commissioner Deloge.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We can bring this into a head, hopefully. Thank you, Lemoyne, for your unity in the community comment. I think that's well taken. You know, the TDC weighed in, the city weighed in, the CRA weighed in, everybody's had their say. I read the headline yesterday, and I thought, or when they brought this up, and I said, well, it looks like they scrambled the deck. And then on further looking at it, I realized, no, they just reordered what had already been said, taking out the one that they had issues with. So I'm fine with this. I think it moves forward. I agree that if we stop now, we're going to set this back years. And frankly, we have taken so long to get here, and that's not perfect. And in defense of the staff, this was a very convoluted process, but they don't ever do this kind of thing. This is one of those out of the norm things. So I think they were creating documents on the fly in an effort to try and figure out how do you do this. We don't do bids for money for performing arts types of programs. This is just kind of an anomaly. So we got to this point. I'm happy with the products. I'm ready to move forward. So I'll support the motion. Thanks.
Thank you. A motion on the floor made by Commissioner Lindley, seconded by Commissioner Lowe, is for option number 1, which is staff recommendation, which is to fund Lemoyne at $1 million, to fund TLH Arts at $1.8 million, and to fund the Riley House at $189,000. That's the motion on the floor. Commissioner Dozier? Yes. All those in favor of the motion on the floor indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0 with Commissioner Dozier recusing herself. Commissioner Dozier, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner, I recognize fully that it's 5 o'clock, that we've got Children's Service Council to to move forward even one more step, and we have a long night. But I do feel so strongly about this that I do want to make one more comment. And I'm going to piggyback on something you just said, Commissioner Deloge, that in reading the article, seeing what the CRA did yesterday, they just reordered the list. As I said before, I think Arts TLH is a great project. I am thrilled that this group has come together. They've worked in good faith. And as have all of the applicants, Riley House, everyone. I'm really thankful that we're going to get all of these projects moving, or these 3 projects moving forward. If the discussion had been reflective of what has happened in the last 5 years, I wouldn't have heartburn about it. It was an advisory committee. We can change what they said. That's fine. But just in my file drawer, and I'm going to pull, I wish Commissioner Proctor was here because I felt like I was channeling him. This entire stack right here is my notes on this process from the past just 2.5 years. That's it. Over 16 votes, articles that have run in the paper, and public organizations, TDC and COCA, that have absolutely advocated for and or supported this holistic arts, culture, and heritage bucket that we put this in. Even the people who advocated for the bed tax dedicated Florida Center for Performing Arts in the first place, Paula Smith, Gail Nelson, they wanted this money for an art museum. So to put out to the community that this was CRA Performing Arts dollars, and I don't fault a lot of the speakers today, because that was the marketing that was done. That's what was put out. That was the messaging. But it is not accurate. We have affirmed countless times that this was arts, culture, and heritage money. So I am happy with the result. But a few short weeks ago, 3 weeks ago or so, we heard a presentation on the strategic plan for Tourist Development Council. We've spent money there. It is fantastic. And I asked a question about coordination. We fund COCA fully, but for about $150K coming from the city and maybe some other funding. And it's through the TDC. And I really want to see how we're coordinating. And Audra, I appreciate you being here today, and Carrie, I appreciate you being here today. But this process was a mess. And when I hear really amazing people in the arts community feeling like there's something going on behind the scenes, that people are not saying what they said in the paper 3 years ago, that they're not saying what they said at a meeting a few years ago. We are breaking down trust in a time when we are making so much progress, rebuilding trust, building transparency, and we all know that if we don't work together, we fail. I mean, that's it, the silos. We talk about that all the time. So I have said this in the past, I know, but in light of the strategic plan, I think we do need to take a deeper dive on the coordination piece and look at this in the fall. And I am really disappointed in how this conversation happened. In fact, if the conversation had been not at this board, I should clarify that. I have not heard a single thing from any of my colleagues here on this board that is not in line with what the past decisions have been. But I think we all want to work with our partners. We want to support the arts community in general, and there should be no perception that we're picking winners and losers or there's something going on behind the scenes. This is not how we do business. So in our house alone, and I'm not faulting any individuals with this, it is different boards, different things. Yeah, I think it is in our interest to make sure our house is playing together, that we are working on the same page. That is it. I think it's just time, and this issue exposed a lot of, whether it's lack of coordination or misunderstanding or something else. I think we're spinning our wheels in some ways. I think we're wasting some money, perhaps. And so I would like to consider that coordination piece at a workshop and see if there's a way that, in light of the strategic plan, invite the TDC board, invite others in, take a look at that in the fall. I think it's been 2-3 years since we did that. So I'd like to make a motion to have a workshop on coordination between TDC and COCA and how we can move the ball forward, hear from them what's happened with the calendar, other things. Carrie mentioned this, and really take a little deeper dive, because I never want to be back here again. We are better than this, all of us, all the players. COCA is doing phenomenal things. TDC is doing phenomenal things. We just got to make sure we're all on the same page, because this got messy unnecessarily, and we had 2 phenomenal projects, and I'm glad that we've got unity. This is fantastic. But I think we need to make sure that this never happens again. So that would be my motion for a workshop, Mr. Chair.
Is there a second to the motion? Motion fails for lack of a second.
Okay.
We'll move on now to item number 25.
Commissioners,
before I do that, just real quick, I want to think it is important that we do thank the CRA director and COCA for their participation in bringing us forward these recommendations, as well as the committee members. They worked hard, and you did put up a lot of paperwork there, so it has been a long time, but they put in some hard work to come up with the recommendations that they did. And so I don't want it to go without saying that we appreciate the work that they put in, as well as the applicants. I mean, this is something that they've had to work their way through for years now. And so I want to thank everybody who took part in this, especially COCA, CRA director, and staff, as well as the applicants who applied and those who are receiving money today. Thank you. Number 25.
Commissioners, this item seeks board direction regarding the establishment and support of a Children's Services Council Planning Committee in anticipation of the creation of an independent Children's Services Council district on the November 2020 election, general election ballot. At your last meeting, Commissioners, you'll recall that the board discussed several options related to the establishment of a planning committee. The proposed committee would be tasked with developing a plan for the future Leon County Children's Services Council if approved by the voters. As discussed by the board at your last meeting, there are 2 distinct approaches that staff has provided for your consideration. Certainly not the only approaches, but for your 2 for your consideration today. For simplicity, a board established committee or a committee that is completely independent of the county. I'd like to take just a couple of minutes to hit the highlights on each of those options. The first option is to establish a planning committee as a county committee appointed by the board. This is the option being recommended by Our Kids First, which has prepared a detailed proposal for structuring and staffing of the committee, as well as a work plan for compiling a final report to be presented to the board in December of 2019. Commissioners, representatives of Our Kids First, including John Moyle, are here. Mr. Moyle's got a speaker card filled out here. They're prepared to provide additional information on their proposal. But under this option, if you were chose to establish the planning committee as a county committee, it would be subject to Leon County policies as well as state sunshine laws. As part of their proposal, Our Kids First has put forward a recommended list of 20 individuals to serve on the planning committee. In addition to approving the appointments, the board would also appoint a county commissioner to serve under this option. To staff a board-appointed committee, the county could either contract with a consultant through a competitive procurement process, as was discussed at your last meeting, or the county could staff that in-house, if you will. Moving to the second approach, the committee could be established independent of the county. Under this option, the development of the plan for the future CSC would come from a community-led initiative under the direction of Our Kids First. Our Kids First would establish a committee independent of the board. The board could still appoint a county commissioner if you so choose. For staffing, the committee could contract with an organization or use a consultant of their choice, and the county could either provide funding for that or not. Commissioners, these options are outlined with more specificity in the item that's before you, but I'll pause at this point and happy to answer any questions that you might have. We're seeking board direction on this item. Thank you. And I've got one speaker on this card, on this item. Yes, John Moyle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. John Moyle, 1006 Washington Street, and I am the head of Our Kids First, which is a political action committee that was formed to promote the creation of a Children's Services Council here in Leon County. I have not been before you. Your last committee meeting, we took up quite a bit of your time going late, but I first wanted to thank you for the unanimous vote to move forward with putting the question of whether to have a Children's Services Council on the ballot before the voters. We had suggested 2018, 2020 was where it's settled, and this discussion tonight is a bit of a fallout issue following that. I do want to share with you, because there have been a number of people that addressed you, that after that meeting, I have been contacted, and other people who are supporters of the Children's Services Council have been contacted by a lot of different people in our community who are expressing support and excitement about your vote. And that has been gratifying to me, a lot of different people, so thank you for your last action. We think that the better approach, let me just back up and explain briefly the plan. I think a couple of the speakers, when they were urging, slow down a little bit. You know, there's a Tallahassee way of doing things. We take some time, blueprint. They said, slow down a little bit. And they said, you could put together, a committee could be put together that could do a lot of the legwork. My initial reaction, and a lot of the Our Kids First supporters were like, you know, we got to move on this. It's an important issue, and we don't want to lose time. And people said, you can put together a group that will mirror and look a lot like the council itself. And they can do a lot of groundwork. They can come up with a blueprint type document that would be an actionable document that would be useful, and you wouldn't lose a lot of time. And so as the conversations unfolded, that point was made. It made sense. And so after the meeting last week, I've spent time, and others have spent time with your staff who have been gracious with their time. And we've put together a memo for you to give you our best thinking and our best suggestion with respect to how this should go forward. And that would be option one, where you all as the county would convene a group. And there's a number of reasons why I think that is better. And that group would engage in a work plan through about November or December of next year. We have contacted a number of people. There's 5 statutory people that would serve on this group. The Chief Judge, John Schustrom, is asking for a legal opinion through a process where they get an ethics opinion to see if he could serve on this. Rocky Hanna, the superintendent, I've spoken with him. He's agreed to serve on it. I think a member of the county commission and the school board would serve on it, and the local DCF administrator has agreed to serve on it. So there you have your 5 statutory people, and then there's a number of community people. I think 15 is what we're proposing, because the statute says you send 3 names to the governor for each community person. So the idea is it sort of replicates what a Children's Services Council would look like, and that's the approach that we think. Really, I think the issue before you, hopefully it's an issue of how should it be staffed, because we have some pretty strong feelings that we think the county should take the action to appoint the group, convene the group, for a couple of reasons. One, the Political Action Committee, was formed for political purpose. I think I've mentioned to you that Ron Meyer set it up. So there's some questions with respect to, is that the appropriate role to do that? But I think also, I mentioned to you that Judge Schustrom is asking for an opinion through a process. I'm not real confident that if his question is, can I serve on a committee that's appointed by a political action committee, that the judge who's deciding that's going to say, yeah, I don't think that's a problem. I think if he asked the question, I want to serve on a committee that's appointed by the county commission, it's much more likely that it will come back in a favorable way, and I think he would be a good member. He was at all of your discussions on the CSC and has an interest, and personally I think he would be a good chair of the group. Also, as your staff noted, the committee that you put together, it is comprised of individuals who would be transparent. It would be subject to the sunshine. I think as this is a community process, that is a good approach to do it that way. So we would urge you to move forward and appoint and act to put together a citizens committee. The question of staffing is one that comes up, and I would say that your staff has done a great job on all the Children's Services Council issues to date. Heather Peoples has spent a lot of time on it, and I wanted to publicly laud her and applaud her for all the efforts that she has done. But I think that's a question that hopefully you all will consider, and we would be fine if the county staffed it. If you all say, well, we think it's better to get someone, a third party through a consultant, that would be okay as well. Our big touchstone is that, touch point on that is to have good quality staff to support the group. So it's a good group. I know in your agenda item, a lot of the people that you heard speak have agreed to serve on it, from the sheriff to the state attorney and others. But I think that you all convening it and appointing it is the better way to go. So happy to answer any questions that you might have, or if they come up during your discussion.
Thank you. I have Commissioner Dozier, Commissioner Lindley, Commissioner Daly, and Commissioner Proctor in queue to speak. Commissioners, Mr. Attorney Moore spoke to us as a citizen, which typically is given 3 minutes. I gave him more than that. Typically, we don't ask citizens to come back up once we start our conversation. I'll leave it to the discretion of this board if you have questions, if you want him to come back up as a leader of that organization. If that's the will of the board, and I'm not going to fight it at all. Commissioner Dozier, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In one sense, we've been talking about this a lot this spring, but in another sense, it's moved a whole lot faster than a lot of other issues we tackle. So I'm very happy we're here today. Appreciate the options and appreciate, John, I'm not sure, you might be sitting behind the podium right now. You're right in front of me. There you are. Thank you for all your efforts, and everyone else. Last time you were surrounded by a lot of other people, so I missed you sitting there. I am leaning towards option one. I think there's a couple of questions in that, but I think may have clarified this already, but Mr. County Attorney, I've heard what Mr. Moyle said, and I've had some concerns about how we would monitor, how we would look at providing public dollars to a political action committee, an advocacy group, because of the rules associated with spending dollars not for advocacy but for education. Can you just talk about, how that process would be, whether or not that is workable from your perspective?
Commissioner, I think it would be very, very tricky at best to provide funding to a PAC. It's just, as Mr. Moyle just said, they're here to advocate the passage of the referendum. Well, we can't do that with taxpayer-funded things. And so providing funding to another entity, if you would, or providing a consultant to assist staff, however those go, I'd highly recommend that you not provide the funding to Our Kids First.
Okay. Thank you for that. sticking on that point for a second, and then I'll ask a question about option one and the two ways we might go about doing that. I have had kind of the legal question, but on the other side, I do think that, I mean, we're looking at a group that thought it would work this year. If we want a transparent committee that is going to look at these issues and all of the various questions that came out in recent months from people who supported this but still had questions, and for those who had more concerns, I think it is appropriate to look at this issue in the next year plus with participation from Our Kids First, but not run by Our Kids First, even without the legal question. But the legal question was my first concern there. So to option one and the two, whether we staff it from county staff, and our county staff has done a wonderful job with the sales tax committee in the past, and I agree, Heather, great job for giving Ms. County Administrator. I went right to her because she's right there, putting together the May 22nd agenda item. But we do have a busy staff, and so I recognize why, County Administrator, you might have suggested an RFP, and that was, Commissioner Daly, your suggestion at the last meeting. In light of the very next item that comes up, the CHSP consultant partners with the city, that's a needs assessment, and it includes the children's category within CHSP. I would not at all think that we need to pull that category out of the CHSP. This is long overdue, and I'm really glad we're moving forward with that study. But I do think there might be some information that comes out of that work with that committee and that consultant, should we approve it, that would benefit this other advisory committee. And I'm kind of wondering if we need two consultants to look at similar things. So I'm wondering, Mr. County Administrator, if there is some way that we could look at a hybrid, maybe allow you to think about this before September. I'm sure we wouldn't, I mean, we might stand up the committee by September, but staff it administratively from the county and hire a consultant if needed to dig deeper into the needs assessment or some portion of that. And if that work can also be done by the consultant working on CHSP, we may have some cost savings there. So, Mr. County Administrator, do you have any heartburn about that kind of scenario?
No, it's really, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, it's really a threshold issue, if you will. If the board decides that this is something that you want the county to be more actively involved in, yes, I think we have to sort of determine that first and then determine what staff's role will be there. That's why we presented these two options here. Again, let me just say that from a technical standpoint or a workload capacity, not an issue for us. Really just a matter of preference for the board. Do you want to keep it arm's length, or do you want to bring it in closer as a more of a county process? Those are just the two choices. Once you decide that, we're very happy to staff it however the board determines to do so.
Thank you. Well, then I am prepared to make a motion, and I will make one simple change, but I'm open to comments from the rest of the board if you want to amend the motion to bring this back in. It's not our practice to have one of us sit on an advisory committee that might be bringing reports back to us. And while I think it's a great idea to have the 5 members of a future Children's Service Council, should it be created, to work on this group, we will all participate as the Board of County Commissioners. So I would just suggest that we eliminate a county commissioner from this group. I'll make a motion for option 1 with Leon County staff to administratively staff the committee and to look at using a consultant for the needs assessment and potentially in partnership with CHSP, and the county administrator can advise us on that in the future.
Is there a second? Motion dies for lack of a second. Commissioner Dozier, you have the floor.
Okay. So if I made a motion for option 1 as it is with the county commission, or I mean, you would second that, but we still haven't gotten to who staffs it. So the second would be on staffing issue, Commissioner Lindley?
Pardon me?
One ABC.
Yeah, one ABC, and that's the staffing as we've suggested here in the.
Motion been made by Commissioner Dozier for option number 1 ABC, seconded by Commissioner Lindley.
Right.
Commissioner Lindley, you actually have the floor.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I was just holding back on your original motion because I hadn't given any thought whatsoever to not having a county commission representative on that board. So that was the deal breaker on that one. I have been persuaded. I think that the county staff, and I think your idea is a good one. If we want to proceed with our county staff at this time and later on need to expend some money for more professional consulting in some area, I'd be happy with that. I particularly, I guess, am persuaded that I don't want us to be participating in an advocacy committee, and I think it is cleaner this way for our staff to provide the backup support now to get this process, going as well as it can be expected. We have a great staff, so I'm comfortable with option 1. It's going to be in the sunshine. That's very important, and I had some reservations at first, but I'm good with this, and I'm happy to support option 1 as it is.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, if I may, I actually heard echoes of ABC from the three of you, but I didn't actually say it myself. So, yes. So just to clarify the motion before we move forward, I have heartburn about B, but as I said, we could discuss that. I would go for A and B and C to give the county administrator until September to look at what scope is in the CHSP, how we do that. But I am not suggesting we go out and just do an RFP to administer this group. I think we can do the administrative work with our staff and potentially save money. So it would be A, B, and then C to be worked on before September to see how we can save some money and piggyback with other things if possible.
Motion on the floor is A, B, and D.
And yes, amended. Thank you.
For clarification, the motion on the floor was A, B, and D. Commissioner Lindley, did you second A, B, and D, or A, B, and C?
It was A, B, and C and D combined, Mr. Chair. That's why I didn't use the letters. Forgive me for making this complicated.
Okay.
But that's specifically why I didn't use the letters, because they're too specific. So if you want to use the letters, motion for A, B, and C and D combined for a recommendation of how that happens when in September.
Third time, motion on the floor is A, B, C, and D.
Okay, and are you specifying in your motion September to get this information?
Yes, because we've got to move forward quickly, and if we got to do an RFP, we got to do that quickly. But at least it allows us to stand up the committee with our staff administering meeting agendas and things of that nature.
Let's go with it.
Thank you.
Second. Motion made by Commissioner Dozier, seconded by Commissioner Lindley. Commissioner Daly, you have the floor.
No, wrap it up. Call the question.
There it is. Question been called by Commissioner
Mr.
Daly.
Chairman, I didn't get a chance to say nothing.
Is there a second call to question? Seeing no second, Commissioner Proctor.
Commissioners, don't vote for this situation right here. I'm encouraging, please don't vote for this. If you know anything about our staff usually makes recommendations on options, and when they don't recommend, they recognize it's a political football, and they don't support it. But they're not going to come out. Hey, Haley, they're not going to come out and do anything about it. Okay, they're just not going to stand up. They ain't for it. Let me tell you what we're doing. Mr. Moyle, who I like, worked with Governor Childs, know him a long time. Came here. Commissioner Daly told us, Children's Council, we're ready. My question was, is this group, as an independent force, do they got a hard bat, a strong bat, an iron bat, because you can't play hardball with a plastic bat? You said we got it, we're going to raise money. We. It was never an hour. You said we going to do this. Now it comes to us that the county is placing ownership with our staff. This was not our baby, it was Daly's baby. Daly not going to be here. So ain't nobody wanted it but him, and now he's gone. So now we got our staff obligated and our money. And we put our credit card on something that we've not really righteously identified, because I don't want to serve on it. I don't know who's going to be on it, this appointed commissioner. If we staff this and we fund this, we will be taxed with it owning the results. It was not our baby from get-go, and looked like Mr. Moyle has left his child on the doorstep and told us to pick it up, take it in the house, and take care of it, and we'll see you in 2 years. I think this is wrong. I don't like the way this is playing out. If we, it now is our obligation, is what we're saying, and we will be obligated. We've got language here that says under D, utilize county staff and resources to support the committee. I don't know what the word to support the committee means, but whatever it means, it seems like it's going to tie them up. And so the functional role of our staff with this language encumbers them beyond the 7 high-maintenance commissioners sitting up here. It's going to open them up and make them subject to 20 additional commissioners who y'all saying would have in the sunshine, which means that our staff have got to cross all the T's, dot the I's, because they want to look good. Everything's in the sunshine. And we're placing our staff at the disposal, the direction, calling upon by people who, one of them is my pastor on this list. And I'm a support. I like my pastor and all. But this is not the right way we're doing this, y'all. I'm just telling you. And I think that this is a slippery slope to put our money behind something, as well as our staff. In 18 months' time, it'll be hard to say this is not a Leon County project. Now, history tells us that when the county brought forth that half-cent sales tax for indigent deceased doctor in 2006, that we had going for us, we were all in. Everybody put their hand in, and we, in the huddle, and we said this is a county-led project. That's not what happened here. This was a Moyle-led project. Then come here and quick kick the thing up here to us, and I don't want it. Now, I know that a bunch of the children, and we just talked about process with that last thing that came up here with Lemoyne, and we talked about a jack-leg process that occurred with the CRA, the county, and the city commission. Now here we go again, right off that issue immediately. Here we are committing to something that we really ought to think about it. I would ask us to think about this. And I think that if we're going to do something, make some kind of, under some guise of something to give this money to Moyle, and if they don't want to run the ball and just dissolve it, let's sit down. Let's be quiet. But the commitment is not there. If you're going to bring this up here and give this to our staff to run, I thought they were going to raise the money. They said they was, and I see all of that dissolving. And I see this going to be limping in if it gets to the ballot in 2020. Ain't nobody up here going to stand up with it after our staff and got bossed around by 20 more new commissioners, and we ain't going to support it. You ain't going to support it. Pull the plug on the thing. Let's do this thing right, because this is not being done right. And for everything that goes wrong with it, this is a county commission project. It ain't the children first. It ain't Mr. Moyle. Commissioner Daley gone down the street. He ain't even be here. I don't want responsibility for it under this circumstance. So I encourage you, I will oppose the motion for those reasons I've enunciated. Thank you.
Commissioner Deloge and Vice Chair Jackson in queue to speak. Commissioner Deloge.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Without some of the rhetoric, I'm going to agree with Commissioner Proctor, mostly because if you look back, the gold standard most of us look at is Blueprint. And if you think about what happened with Blueprint, you had a group of individuals on the environmental side and on the developer side outside of the four walls of this building that said, we're not funding things in the way we should. Let's get together and figure out how this works. We didn't staff it. We didn't run it. We might probably gave some direction about if you wanted to put ballot language together. It was organic and it was holistic and it came together. We got involved on the turn when you renewed it. At this point, we got history. You know what you're doing. And I think, to Commissioner Proctor's point, it's not cooked in here, but regardless of what you think, there's a lot of staff issues and time and oversight when we go down this path. And where does it stop? Rick Carney shows up and says, I want us to have a study and I want to talk about the homeless issue in our community. Okay. Mark O'Brien comes to us and says, I've got issues with opioids. Let's talk about that. I mean, we're opening the door here for us becoming kind of, involved in a lot of things. And then I worry a little bit about our independence. You get to this when it gets on the ballot in 2020, and I'm a little nervous that what happens is we've teed this whole thing up, and as Commissioner Proctor said, we own it. So I'm a little inclined to say I'm fine with giving some help, but I'd like to keep it arm's length until we get it to the ballot. I mean, frankly, I'd like to see the product, the work product. I am nervous about us owning this for the same reasons Commissioner Proctor put out. So,
Mr. Vice Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, for always making me last to be selected and say the things the other commissioners
that's where you got in there, man.
have already said. I cannot support option one for many of the reasons that we've mentioned. I would like one point of clarification from the county attorney. How does the funding differ in option 2B, where $75,000 would be allocated towards a consultant or organization selected by the committee if it were run independently?
My understanding of what's proposed here is that the county would assist by funding a consultant to gather the necessary information, but it is not by any means a advocacy
For a particular
for yes or no.
committee?
Right.
Huh?
Is there
I'd love to make a substitute motion if it's desired, and that would be to option 2 with both A, I do agree that we need a commissioner on, and B, allocating the $75,000 if it's not a conflict, and you have assured me of that. Options A and B.
Substitute motion made for options A and B by Vice Chair Jackson, seconded by Commissioner Deloge. Vice Chair Jackson, is that the end of your comments?
That's it.
That is it. Commissioner Deloge, you're back in queue. Okay, I'm sorry. Let me clear out.
What distinguishes C, 1C and 1B? Somebody A and B. Break that down for slow-minded.
1C and 2B?
Yeah, what are distinguishing?
What distinguishes, Mr. Administrator?
In either case, you would be utilizing a consultant for the purposes of staffing the committee. In one, it would be a board established committee. Obviously, in 2, as is the case on the motion on the floor, it would be an independent committee. As Herb said, we could make sure that care is taken with respect to the dollars, if you decide to allocate them, as reflected in the motion, that we act as a fiscal agent. So we would contract with the consultant to staff the committee, not the Political Action Committee.
And now, is our staff tied up and committed to this as?
This doesn't constitute a staff concern for us.
We don't have sunshine obligations under this, do we?
No, sir.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
I have Commissioner Dozier, Commissioner Daley, Commissioner Proctor, and queue to speak. Commissioner Dozier, Commissioner Dozier. Commissioner Dozier, you have the floor now by yourself.
Mr. Chair, I am going to be pretty astonished if this vote passes. I understand the arguments. I respectfully disagree that we had a 7-0 vote to put it on the ballot in 2020. We not only do own this, but we own it as an issue that the community supported. And I think I said this at the last meeting, but if we don't have good coordination, we have seen when special districts go bad. And quite frankly, and I've been on the Innovation Park Board for 7 years and helped turn it around. When it is sitting out there with no one else paying attention to it as a silo, a lot of problems can happen. I would have that concern about a Children's Service Council or anything, and I'm not saying that would happen. The more coordination we have, the better. If we are going to support this on the ballot, we should support the process, in my opinion, that has served us in the past. Commissioner Deloge, you are right. The original EECC with Blueprint 2000, that worked. It was a particular point in time. Those members tried to reconstitute it. It couldn't work. So we now have a precedent for a hybrid, a community-driven committee staffed by the county. And you know what? We did change the recommendations of that committee when it came back, whether it's Imagine or other things. So this doesn't bind us to any specifics, but it is the most transparent, collaborative process, and I would argue more independent than a political action committee using county funds to do this. I think this is really bad precedent if we do this. That is my feeling, even if the county administrator, if we do an RFP and everything like that. I don't understand, Commissioner Proctor, how you feel this is keeping it at arm's length is anything better. You've been an advocate and a champion for this for months. So I think it is the most appropriate way to run this ourselves. And I will also say I'm not sure that our Kids First Children wants to do this. They have no staff. These are volunteers. So they didn't ask for this. I'm not sure that this is workable from their side at this point. So we may be giving money to a process that just doesn't have any product, and then we've wasted $75,000. So forgive me, Mr. Chair, I wanted to lean in one more time on this because I feel so strongly that this is bad precedent and not in line with what we've done in the past in a successful way. Thank you.
Thank you. Motion on the floor is for option. Substitute motion on the floor. Commissioner Proctor, I got about 20 minutes. Respond quickly.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We can't pre-commit to the findings, the solution, and we don't know the outcome of further what these 20 people will come back with. So to say that we're going to support it, I don't know what I'm going to support. I don't know. They may get in there and start thinking crazy. And I don't like what they come back with. And I reserve the right to not pre-commit. So don't take my credit card. Now, if Haley had my credit card, then, well, Shiggy, you know what to do with it. But I ain't gave my credit card to nobody, and I'm going to just embrace it. Okay? That seems like what we're doing. We're committing to something political we said we will not do. Now, why, if this Our Kids First, and why do we support Our Kids First in establishing independent children's? If you're independent, you don't need my permission to do anything if you're independent. So the only thing the independent word means is that it's independent of who? Of what? I guess it means independent of county staffing or independent of county's money. But if they're so independent, what they asking our permission to be independent for? I don't get that. So I'm not happy tonight. I know this is not a perfect world. I don't think that our staff should be tied up with this. We did not, as a board, vet, think out, but we did get on board to follow a few steps, Mr. Moyle. I hope we work this out. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me those 2 minutes. 1 minute, I'm sorry, 45 seconds.
The final speak on the item, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. And let me see if I can bring this in for Landon with another idea. And Commissioner Dozier, I understand completely where you're coming from. And Commissioner Proctor, you did bring up a great point.
Thank you.
That I will not be here one way or the other in November. So I am the prime county commissioner to serve as the organizational commissioner on your behalf to get this up and off the ground. So here's what I would propose. Under option number 2A and B, I will utilize my staff to serve as the communication to bring this independent board that's being recommended. If we could have the chambers at a set time, Mr. Administrator and Mr. Chairman. At the meantime, under the motion that's on the table, if staff will proceed with the RFP, so what will happen is I'll take on the responsibility to bring the independent group together. I will take on the responsibility with my staff to communicate with everybody. We can meet here in the chamber just for an organizational. At the same time, county staff can move forward with the RFP. Once we have that independent entity that will take on the responsibility, at that organizational meeting, we can figure out what's going to be the most appropriate body. It'll probably mean creating a 501c3 that is not a political action committee that can move forward and serve as the fiscal agent. I'll be more than happy to take on that responsibility, and because of the fact that I will not be here in November, then I don't think it would pose a conflict moving forward to do so.
I second that substitute motion.
Whoa.
No.
Wait a minute.
No. It's under 2A or B. It's not an amendment.
It'll be an amendment to the substitute.
It is squarely 2A is if you all will appoint me as your commissioner.
We do. That's correct.
Move forward, right. And then 2B is the authorize the county administrator to execute an agreement. Basically, find out who's going to be the fiscal agent that's going to handle this work that's not county staff.
The only question I have for staff is, do we as a board have to give Commissioner Daley authorization to use his staff to convene? I don't think we do.
No.
But I just want to make sure it's on record that we don't.
There's no money coming out of my account.
Right,
No
so we're
money
good.
being transferred. You are doing the RFP. The only thing I'm saying is that if we're worried about staff time, sending out emails to set up a meeting, I'll be more than happy to do that through my office.
Mr. Vice Chair, do you accept that amendment?
Up and off the ground.
Yes.
I do.
Amendment accepted. On point.
Commissioner Daley, I would love for you to be on the committee if we have a county commissioner on the committee. It's supposed to be a county commissioner. How in the world can you serve after you're not being a county commissioner? This is moving way too. I do not understand. I appreciate the offer. I'm not going to support it anyhow, but this is just getting more and more complicated.
I'm not making myself clear, and I apologize. Okay. What I'm basically saying is that you're correct. Come November, when I'm gone one way or the other, for the long-term purposes, there will have to be a county commissioner that will serve. You will also have at least one, if not two, new county commissioners that might be willing to serve in that position as well.
You have one.
But the point is that just for the purpose of organizing the first meeting, if we're worried about using staff time, I will offer up my office just to organize the first meeting. Now, the motion on the table directs the administrator, not my office, to do the RFP, to find the permanent outside independent agency that would be the fiscal agent that would do all the research. I'm just saying, for the purposes of convening a first meeting, I will be more than happy to do so if we're worried about using the administration's staff time.
For the purposes of what we're talking about today, I don't think there's any. What he's saying is he wants to be the appointment if the board so appoints. Now, what he does after he becomes the appointment becomes a prerogative of him in his office. He didn't even have to add the extra part. He just added to give the board his intent on what he planned to do to organize the first meeting.
Sure.
The motion on the floor is options 2A and B, with Commissioner Daley being the appointment from this board to that committee. All those in favor of the motion on the floor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-2. We'll break now, commissioners, for about 12 minutes. Everybody back here at 6. John's got a point. 2A and B, John's is ours. Our staff only writes the RFP. That's why it's true.